PSGL, George Morgan here and Jack Canat.
All the lights are currently lit here on track, and it is go, go, go! Donoso with a crafty maneuver up the inside. Masterclass from the Chilean.
Crucial championship points on offer here.
Do not count out Danny Beresne.
Longe has done the job. This is for the win between these two.
Freddie Rasmussen wins the United States Grand Prix.
Alfie Butcher wins for the first time ever. Lucas Blakely takes the championship. It's Barry Foreman.
Jarno Opmeer is your champion.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to E-Series once again, as I just need to get Josh's camera onto the screen. There we are. Welcome
Well,
back, everybody.
happens.
We're back for round number 6 of the Championship. And, well, Josh, obviously we've had some close rounds recently. We had a very good race back in Austria. And going through in
Yes.
towards Belgium now, we've got 5 teams separated by 27 points, that being Race Clutch down to R8G in P5. So, we're going into Belgium, a track which is raced quite a lot on the game. The drivers don't need to practice this track to be fast because it's in their veins, isn't it? It's natural to be able to drive
Yes.
this track quickly.
And it's something that everyone knows. Spa-Francorchamps, let's not beat around the bush. It is the most historical track in Formula One. You could argue with Silverstone and Monaco, but nowhere else has quite captivated the mind such as a Spa-Francorchamps. And necessarily how it's going to eke out, because these drivers will know it like the back of their hand. It'll be like blood running through their veins. And boy, do we have some drivers here tonight who are going to absolutely love to be able to show what they've got out here on the E-Series stage. And again, it's something that I just cannot wait for. I don't think we've had a championship this nip and tuck between so many competitive teams since its inauguration here at PSGL. Nathan, mate, I just want to get into it. Let's have a look at who's racing tonight, yeah?
Well, this grid it's something, isn't it? We'll leave some of the names till later on, but looking firstly at Race Clutch, our championship leaders going into this round, we've got Reece Linton and Kai Pearson, and then newly signed Aston Martin esports driver Otis Lawrence will race alongside Joost Noordijk. Then Veloci Academy have also got a brand new lineup in. They got returnee Leo Lund alongside their newest signing Gabriel Quintino tonight. R8G, the man of the moment, Thomas Ronhaar is alongside Tygo Hardy, and then Ferrari have John Evans and Patrick Seapass. We have McLaren with Shimon Lekomsky and Philip Preschneider. TRT have Daniele Parodi and Angelo D'Ortenzio. And then, Josh, what a team we got tonight in Red Bull. We got Jarno Opmeer.
No bias from my point here, not at all. But you say that, Jarno Opmeer, Declan Barrett, feel like it could be quite a bit in the works there for both those drivers. Surely looking to try and bring out the utmost of their performance to try and get back to the top of the championship standings. But then, of course, they're not alone. We've got Daniel Kaya, Marcel Biega for TES. We know they've gone a little bit under the carpet so far, having very strong qualifyings and occasionally a very strong race as well. So we're going to have to keep a special eye out for them. And then, of course, we've got Williams. I know you've had a little bit of talk with a couple of the Williams drivers here and there behind the scenes, and they're looking forward to tonight. They want to see what they're able to do. Will Lewis, qualifying ban. Some have been taking a mick on social medias. A fresh engine restart, ready to give his best Max Verstappen impression to go from P20 all the way up to P1. For me, around a track like Spa, it could potentially happen. And then, of course, Kian, we know him by now. He's one of the first drivers who will always go out on circuit, and he's one of the drivers who will give his absolute all, no matter what scenario he's put in. Something you've always got to keep an eye on. But I've noticed you've glanced over a team there, Nathan, haven't you?
Which team?
Well, it might be, Otis now making his debut with Aston Martin. Absolutely huge transfer news. As far as things go in league racing, Jarno Opmeer was one thing the other week. Now Otis to Aston Martin. A lot of these silly driver transfer moves are really starting to kick off at this point. And of course, joining him, Joost Noordijk, perhaps one of the favourites to maybe try and push themselves to get into Q3 and get themselves starting out on the front foot to try and capture as many points as possible. With a driver like Otis, surely that's going to be so capable for the Aston Martin team to do. I want to see how they're going to utilise him to the best of their abilities.
Of course, I'm excited to see how Aston Martin can do tonight. And before we head out onto the circuit, we're going to have a quick glance at the standings. So, as I said, it is correct. 27 points separate the top 5, being Race Clutch at the top after their very good race back in Austria. Could have been even better after they made a bit of a blunder on the strategy, but they lead Ferrari, who are on 164 points, back to Red Bull on 158. Then we have Aston Martin on 152, and then 2 points behind them is R8G on 150. Then Veloci Academy sit in 6th place on 121, ahead of McLaren, who were near the bottom of the standings a few rounds ago. A win from Jack West puts them up into 7th place, ahead of Tatum Racing Team, Thomas Sheng Sim Racing, and Williams Esports at the back of the field. Still not looking good at all for Williams on 77 points, 100 points off our race leader. They definitely need a result tonight, and that's why I'm wearing my Williams jacket. So I'm here to undo the commentary curse and help them secure a 1-2, even though Will Lewis is starting at the back.
I don't know, mate. I don't know. Again, we know how the commentary curse works, right? We don't pick on any singular particular driver here at PSGL anymore because it is a thing. I'm convinced, and I believe it's also a thing for YouTube chat as well. But currently on your screens, you should be able to see Marcel Biega here, the first driver looking to try and settle up on the board here for TES. But you will also notice there is a little precipitation, and that's being very, very generous. It is raining, and we're going to see many drivers looking to try and go round onto this soft compound tyre, just make sure they're their equipment works, whether that's going to be, Asatech, Fanatec, whatever sort of tech you want, to be quite honest with you. But they're all going around making sure everything's up to a working standard that they're happy with before going and setting on the intermediate tyres, because it's going to be so crucial to maximise fresh inters in this qualifying run if it gets to that stage. Because I don't know about you, but I could potentially see maybe a couple of these drivers trying to brave it out on a set of softs for a hot lap. I mean, where's Dylan Moran when you need him?
I'm sure Dylan Moran would have tried it on a set of the soft tyres, but
have.
we had 4 people out, Marcel Biega, Leo London, a couple of others, and they decided no, the soft tyres aren't the way to go, so they headed back into the pit lane and now will strap on a set of the intermediates, I believe. Everyone's still got a soft selected, so unless they are going to go out on a set of soft. So maybe it was just one of those outlets where they'll just try it, and then obviously going to go back in, get another set of the softs and go out just before the rain gets too heavy on circuit. It looks like it's starting to come down a little bit heavier as the session gets longer. Of course, we have the 3 qualifying sessions. Q1, the bottom 5 get knocked out. Q2, the bottom 5 get knocked out. And that leaves Q3 with just 10 drivers fighting for that pole position. So when it comes to weather like this, where it's a bit unpredictable, you're not quite sure what the best tyre is, and you don't know how the weather's going to go throughout the session, that's where you see kind of, as much as a skill factor, you do see a bit of a luck factor come into play, and you see some drivers who might not normally be fighting at the top, get it right at the right time, and end up at the top of the timings, and can easily maybe get into Q2 or get into Q3, and give their team a real shot. And I think teams that will be looking to try something a bit different and trying to play a bit on their luck will be teams such as TES, Tatum Racing Team, and Williams, who really haven't got off the foot well. They're still a little bit further back down in the standings. But as we saw from McLaren, all you need is one good result and you can bounce straight up and move 2 or 3 positions like McLaren did. They was 9th, they was 10th after round 1. They're now 7th and they're only 70 points off the championship lead.
Yeah, and it's one of those beautiful things, isn't it? Because the grid's so competitive, because everyone's so close to one another, all you really need is that one race where you can go, right, let's put our foot down here, let's get a good result. You end up coming away with maybe a P2, a P3. Next thing you know, you're looking like you're absolutely flying in the championship. It could really change sort of the momentum in the camp and how that builds throughout the rest of this series. Because, of course, now, round 6, we're past the halfway stage. You might think that, okay, this is where some of the teams, maybe we're going to start using the likes of, the Rasmussens, the Otmiers, the Blakeleys, now the Lawrences for Aston Martin, for example, and the Ronhars. That's where we're going to really start seeing them dig their heels in and try and maximise every single thing they can get. As we did get a notification there saying DRS is now enabled, which used to be the historical telling point to say dry tyres are quicker. With that being said, we've got both race clutches out on a set of intermediate tyres. So it's going to be interesting to see where they're going to really try and fester out in this moment in time, because we do also have Thomas Ronhar going out on a set of intermediates as well, showing that despite what people might think, the game has changed over the last 3 years.
Certainly.
For better or for worse, we'll have to wait and see.
I mean, it's interesting that the DRS does get enabled and cars go out on a set of the intermediate tyres, and the rain does look like it's slowing down. It could just be the camera angle that I'm looking at, but it does look like it has slowed down since the start of the session here. So maybe we will be going back towards the soft tyres as the qualifying session gets along, which would be rather interesting. And yes, again, throws another curveball into the qualifying session. But we'll go back on board with our championship leaders, race clutches. They have Rhys Linton and Kai Pearson out here tonight. Of course, Rhys Linton was in a position to win the race, and for Pepin to be in second by over 5 seconds to third, but they made a strategy blunder by pitting when the others didn't, and they unfortunately finished P3, and I think it was P6 for Lenny Pepinta in that race. So they're still having an advantage with having the championship lead, but it could have certainly been a little bit higher. But something to remember, Josh, it was wet back in Austria, and Race Clutch performed well. So maybe their forte is the wet weather, as Rhys Linton has to catch the car, because for a moment he could have ended up sending it up into the wall.
My word, that was a ridiculous catch. Unfortunately, invalidating his lap time, but his teammate behind Kai Pearson is looking to keep himself on the run. making sure using the DRS, turning it on in the intermediate tyres, it's such an odd thing to look at. You know, it's not one of those things you would necessarily anticipate ever seeing, but again, what can I say? F124, it's a wild bucket, isn't it, to be honest with you? You can get left, right, centre, no matter what happens. We're still seeing many drivers staying in the pit lane, hoping for the conditions to improve, to go out on a set of soft tyres, to go and get themselves a quicker run in comparison to the intermediates. Yes, that's obvious, but let's not forget, some people, not going to mention names, I can already see Seb in the chat, know they like the back of a hand. Other people, they might be a little bit new, might not necessarily know how the game works, so we're just trying to make it as inclusive and as open for everyone. But one thing that we should always keep an eye out for, Race Clutch, they've learnt from their mistakes last weekend, and they're back with vengeance.
Yeah, well, I've got to say, Josh, the rain stopped on my screen. There is no water falling on the circuit, so that means we should see the drivers go and get soon on a set of the softs. And as I say that, there we are. We've got 3 cars heading out onto track. Marcel Biega being the first one, of course, part of the Tomasz Eng Sim Racing team. And then we have Gabriel Quintino for Veloce Academy and Daniel Koya for TES also heading out onto circuit, as Kai Pearson will complete his lap and the first lap of the session, with it being a 1:47.835. We'll see what Thomas Ronhaar can do, unless he decides just to go back into the pits and get a set of the soft tyres on. But I've got to say, we've got 3 brilliant drivers, 3 of the best in esports, having Jarno Otmir, Otis Lawrence and Thomas Ronhaar. And that then just puts more pressure on other teams who haven't thrown out their wild cards yet. Of course, we saw Ferrari back in round 2 with Nicholas and Barry. But when you have people like Thomas, Jarno turning up, Ferrari have got to throw those in again, because
They have.
You know,
as much as
we love Patrick and John,
they've got John.
True.
They're here for it. You know, nicked him off from Aston Martin, I believe. They're looking to try and get him sorted, get him started. A lot of hype around John in the chat. We know what he's capable of. Let's see if he's able to deliver on a traditional John Evans performance, to say the least. But we want to see lap times improved. I think Ron Haar's just given us an example of showing why the track's improving. It's getting better. For me, Nathan, it's going to be very interesting to somewhat see how it's all going to boil down. And to also see, in the future, when some of these teams do decide to deploy their, I don't want to say final form, but in a sense, you know, it's very much feeling that way.
It is. It certainly is. And, you know, it's something we'll see, especially towards the end of the season. Teams tend to bring out some of their better drivers towards the end, especially when they're in a championship fight. And at the moment, it's very, very close. I think P7 to P1 70 points and P1 to P5 is only 27. So everyone is easily in the game for this at the moment. But we can see now some of the cars heading out on their first laps on a set of the soft tyres, being Marcel Biega, one of them. He's just heading down the Kemmel Straight in towards Lecom. Of course, you have the DRS enabling all the way down the back straight in towards the Lecom chicane, braking late just before that 50-metre would get the car turned in. As you head your way around out the chicane through Malmedy, down to Ravage at turn number 9. And we'll see what Marcel can do in his second sector. He has a bit of a lock-up, misses the apex slightly, but can carry enough speed through that. That doesn't really matter as he heads into Speaker's corner, goes really wide, and it's seeming here that I don't know if it's a track or just Marcel, but he's suffering from a lot of understeer at the moment in that car.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way, isn't it? He's making a lot of corrections on the wheel, trying to make sure, especially around P1 there, just trying to get the car turned in, trying to get it rotating around. But it seems to not necessarily want to be able to bite into the circuit, so perhaps maybe there is still a little bit of grease on the circuit. Maybe it's a little bit too green at the moment. Of course, when water comes down on the circuit, it washes away a lot of the rubber, and it somewhat turns into more of an oily substance. But with that being said, purple middle sector on my screen there, but we know it can be a feature, so we'll just have to wait and see how he's going to take the Blanchimont corner. It was flat up over Rouge Radion, flat around Blanchimont, exactly as you would expect. Let's see where these soft compound tyres are starting to put out these lap times, because let's not forget, around Spa, it is one of those circuits where it does have its own microclimate, and a lot of things can change very, very quickly. And it's all going to be about staying on top of whatever the weather challenges face. But Marcel Biega getting us underway with the soft compound tyre laps with a 1:23.4, followed by Gabriel Quinto, 1:23 flat, showing there were a couple of mistakes there for Biega's lap, but it's not the end of the world. He's able to go back around and get another lap in. With 5 minutes left of the session, it's not a short track by any means, but that's plenty of time to be able to go and get yourself another flying lap.
Of course, as Daniele Parodi there had an invalidation, and I'm just on board now with Kean Godendorp, who is heading down towards the bus stop chicane. of course, wanting to try and get Williams here into Q3, needs to do so for the Williams team as he heads his way out of the bus stop chicane up towards the line. What will it be for the Williams driver? It will be a 42.390, and now we know that the track is certainly ramping up quickly, as we can see. Of course, Parodi heading through in towards Savalo now at the right-hander, but of course he will have to go back into the pits due to his invalidation, and will have to go again, of course, if he wants to get himself out of that Q1 drop zone. Of course, Will Lewis serving a qualifying ban. I believe it was for a qualifying interference in Austria, so of course Williams had to choose one of their drivers to take it, and it will be Will Lewis who suffers a fate this evening, but of course Kin Gunnadup will be one trying to help the one-man band in the top 10 for the Williams team, as we can see Prody head back into the pit lane, and many of the others who have just finished their laps will also head back into the pits before going onto their lap. And I've got to say, with the track coming down so quickly in terms of lap times, it does make the end of the qualifying very interesting, because the track's always improving. And sometimes you can have drivers which at the front of the field be nearly half a second off those at the back of the field. And that's why you've got to be kind of one of the last to go out, but you can't go out too late. If you do so, you won't be able to get a lap time on the board. So you've got to really play it right. It's a little bit like, I suppose, when you watch Formula 3 and Formula 2, how they all go out so late and they've just got to try and get to the line in time, but they want to be at the back. And that's the issue, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's very much somewhat like a game of poker.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be the first one out, because traditionally you would create a little bit of wait for the cars behind and offer a slipstream. Thankfully, because it's all ghosted, it still doesn't really change though, because you don't want to be at the front. You don't want to be the first one to set the lap time, because your lap time will naturally just be worse than the rest of the cars behind you, given the track evolution. But with that trade-off, you won't have the distraction of potential ghost cars around you, going through your car, going alongside you, whatever that might be. You won't have that distraction, but it's going to be all very much nip and tuck here around a circuit which you wouldn't necessarily say you would want any distractions around, given how much time you can lose through just a couple of the really critical corners here. Thinking about Rouge Radion, all you have to have is a slight mistake on your steering angle. Next thing you know, lap time invalidation. You've completely ruined your qualifying. And that can be said for so many corners around here, especially the likes of Blanchard on the bus stop chicane. All it takes is a slight miscalculation, and next thing you know, you could be falling yourself down the order by practically a second at this point, depending on the track evolution. But let's keep an eye out here to see how many more of these drivers are going to be able to get themselves a very good lap time. And let's see how they're going to somewhat jockey for position with ghost cars on as well.
It'll be interesting. I think, obviously, you're not going to have to worry about hitting the car in front, but of course, you don't want to get yourself a penalty for blocking someone. Even though you're a ghosted car, you can still block because it provides a visual interference rather than a physical one. As we can see the cars weaving, warming up their tyres, of course. Brake dragging doesn't really work on this game, as we can see all the cars heading through in towards the Laycombe chicane. And on board here with John Evans, of course, ex-Aston Martin driver now here for Ferrari, making his debut here in E-Series. Will be interesting to see what he can do. And Keane Gundup has retired in the pits. So he's I can
tell you why.
Why?
Because when he came into the pit box, the car he was sharing the garage with these new F1 World cars came out of the pits at the same time, which caused him a little bit of a longer wait by roughly about 20-30 seconds. So even if he did make it in time, it was going to be nip and tuck for him to get back around and get another lap on the board. But because a car pulled out as well at the perfect time to block Kean, he's going to end up feeling the repercussions of that, being forced to retire early, allowing the rest of his competitors here to get a lap on what would potentially be a quicker circuit.
Yeah, well, I will not wear the Williams jacket for the rest of the evening because I've jinxed them already. And they're now having a double Q1 knockout instead of one driver being knocked out. So the Williams jacket is on the bed now. I'm not going to wear it because I've cursed them already. Honestly, I need to... Yeah, I'm definitely not going to wear that jacket again or support any team anymore. That's it. Just going to be neutral to everyone and try not to curse anyone or curse them all together. But we can see Philip Presnard now heading down towards turn one, and I can see a few people talking about lag. So please let us know if it is a stream rather than your own connection, because obviously I can try and fix it if that's the case. But the McLarens are first to go out on track, and of course with the win last week in Austria, Josh, they need to try and do that again, because really McLaren should be involved with this championship fight, but unfortunately, due to the first 4 rounds being a bit of a disaster, they haven't been able to do so.
Yeah, we know Philip is a very, very technical driver when it comes to, I was about to say the streets of Spa, but it's no longer a street, is it? It's not just a road which goes up the mountain, it's an actual race circuit. That shows you how old I am, guys. But no, Philip Progenada looking to get himself back into that form, back into that rhythm, and continue marching McLaren up the standings, because we know they've got a very talented team. They've got very talented drivers left, right, and centre in their reserves to try and make something out of this E-Series, to try and build on it. And of course, let's not forget Lucas Blakely. How can we ever forget him? Still not being used here in E-Series, being saved until the very last moments. But when Lucas does come through, you would expect some very, very strong results for this McLaren team. Once again, to keep them marching through the standings, catching up with what I would only assume to be the goal of, matching the likes of the Red Bull Sim Racing, the Ferrari Esports, and the Aston Martin Esports as well, because realistically, that's what their goals are going to be, and that's also going to be what Williams' goals are going to be, because that's what they're going to get compared to, rather than some of the community teams. So for them, it's more about saving their own skin and making sure that they're able to perform at that highest level, as we will see Philip here come up towards the line. What's the lap time going to be? A 41 flat. We're seeing the track time improvement. We might be saying goodbye here to King Ottendorf, and it definitely looks that way, but we're going to see cars left, right, and centre come across the line. Declan Barrett there, putting a new provisional fastest lap time on the board. Have any drivers invalidated? Ziana Watmia now takes the purple lap time, clearly seeing an improvement left, right, and centre. Tycho Hardy, 21.2. A lot of these drivers we're going to have to keep an eye on, because everything is changing so quickly in this session.
Of course, and Keane Godendorp has been knocked out of qualifying, and so has Reese Linton. Race Clutch, our championship leaders, have had one of their drivers knocked out in the first part of qualifying, meaning he will start 17th in the Belgian Grand Prix. It was a very quick ending to qualifying. We'll have a quick look at the times, and it will be Otis Lawrence who will take that top spot in Q1 ahead of Jarno Opmeer and Declan Barrett to make it a 2-3 for Red Bull, and then Thomas Ronhart in fourth place ahead of Philip Preschneider, Gabriel Quintino, John Evans, Shimon Lekomsky, Kai Pearson, and Angelo D'Ortenzio being the top 10. Then we have Joost Noordijk, Tycho Hardy, Patrick Sipos, Daniele Parodi, Daniel Kaibe in the top 15. Then we did lose Marcel Biega for TES, Reese Linton for Race Clutch, Leo Lund for Veloci Academy, and the two Williams who will start P19 and P20. But definitely a big surprise for Race Clutch to lose one of their quickest drivers in the first part of qualifying, which means now they need to completely change the game plan for one of their drivers to do something completely different, which is really going to throw a little bit of trouble at their Belgian Grand Prix. But Josh, we haven't got to worry about weather now, because we go through into Q2, and the weather, it looks a little bit more pleasant, doesn't it?
So the sun's decided to finally come out and grace us with some beautiful presents. Of course, warming up the track, make it a little bit easier for the guys out there on the soft compound tyre, presumably, before anyone decides to check on a set of medium tyres and try and qualify like it was back in the old day. But, realistically, we're going to be looking here. They'll have a little bit more time now to prep their laps, get themselves into that operating window. We will see lap times continue to improve through Q2, through Q3, exactly as you would expect in real life. But for me, Race Clutch, it's again another bit of a blunder, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not the ideal start they would like, especially when you compare to some of the teams they're battling against. Ferrari have got both drivers through, Red Bull have got both drivers through, Aston have got both drivers through.
Yeah.
And it's going to be one of those things that we're just going to have to keep an eye on to see what Reese is going to be able to do in the race, because fortunately enough for him and both the Williams drivers, it is a track you can race at. It is a track you can overtake at. There is potential in the race to be able to cook something up and to be able to really try and maximize whatever result, no matter where you qualify. But it's going to be key for them to understand where they went wrong in qualifying and where they can improve moving forward in towards that race session.
Certainly, I think especially for Reese now, he's just got to sit there and think, he's got another 25, 30 minutes here just to think what he can do in the race, what strategy he can try and go for, and whether he tries to go for a bit of an undercut, go for a big overcut, because he's got to try something different. We know he shouldn't be down in PAC. He's got more than enough pace to be in that top 10 easily, in the top 5. So he's got to try something different. And the issue that sometimes you have with drivers such as Reese and some of our other fast drivers being down at the bottom is they're not adjusted to being down with some of the slower drivers. So they've got to work their way through a field which at the start might seem a bit slower. So they've got to also have that patience to work their way through the field and make the moves at the right time. A little bit like a chess game. You can't just throw it left, right and centre. You've got to wait for the right opportunity to make a move ahead of a driver ahead of you. And of course, with this game being the way it is with Dirty Air, it also means that overtakes can become harder because we can see probably the top 20 all in one train going together down towards Lake Como, going down towards the bus stop chicane, which makes it even harder to make an overtake because everyone has kind of, the DRS makes it so no one's got an advantage anymore.
Mate, I'm grinning like the Cheshire Cat just for thought of a 20-car DRS slipstream fest. It's going to be ridiculous, of course. I'm not sure. Have you commentated on Spa so far in this game, in this title?
A couple of times.
Yeah, because there's a couple interesting things we can see happen. Of course, with my work over at Red Bull and running their Oracle Racing League, the first race we had was around Spa-Francorchamps, and we saw many drivers, familiar names here at PSGL. We saw the likes of Riccardo Benzoni have a race there and get very, very heated up out of the Eau Rouge Radion using the DRS down the Kemmel Straight. We saw 3, 4, 5 wide moments. It was ridiculously close. If we're going to see anything like that here tonight, everyone make sure after qualifying you grab your popcorn, you grab yourself a drink, preferably a Red Bull. Okay, that's the rest of my bias out of the system. But as a whole, it should be an absolutely fantastic event. And with 11 minutes left on the timer, they're all waiting. They're all being patient, and that's the key here, isn't it? You've got to pick your moment. That's the key.
Certainly, and that is, it makes it a little bit more difficult when you've got a grid which isn't the same level, because we've got drivers, of course, here from PSGL F1, but also drivers that are featuring in F2 and also a couple that are featuring in F3. And obviously, when you're in different levels of racing, when you race against different opponents, you're not always going to be able to race the same, because in F3, you might have to race a lot different to F1. So that's where the drivers have also got to kind of learn how to race with each other, because sometimes a bit of misjudgment in racing about who leaves more space, who leaves less space, can cause incidents, and it can cause penalties and all of that malarkey, which the teams don't want. Because remember, obviously the drivers here, they might not care as much if they get involved in an incident, but the team does, because it's broadcasted live. The team doesn't want to be seen crashing into people or, getting into incidents. And the teams as well are here for money. They're racing for £1,000 in total. Yes, it might not seem a lot. I think the winner gets about, it was 500 or something like that. It might not seem a lot to some teams, but it's still something, isn't it? It's still, a moment you can take with pride.
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to say, right, okay, you've disrupted the flow of what has been a very traditional Ferrari dominance in E-Series. You're able to take away that crown from Ferrari, give a little bit of egg on the face. And especially, the likes of Jarno and Thomas, who have been there, done it, raced at the highest level. Patrick Sipos as well, another great name, which isn't quite mentioned enough. To race against them for a lot of these younger development drivers, it's going to be absolutely huge. Otis is very much now, may I say, a prime example of what I'm going to talk about here. Once he started racing into the F1 tiers, we saw a couple of mistakes creep in, but since then he's brushed it up a little bit. He's been able to get more consistent. He's been able to find a way to manipulate his racecraft towards that level. And for me, it's going to be very, very awesome to see a lot of these younger drivers understand, okay, right, I am racing, so-and-so. I am racing, a Lucas Blakely, a Freddie Rasmussen, a Jarno Otmir. How do they race, and how can I influence that in my own decision-making to be able to maximize, my own runs in my personal championships outside of E-Series? And for me, it's that level of understanding and development that these drivers are able to have. It's going to be so, so crucial for their progress moving forward to try and get into an F1 sim racing seat. Because at the end of the day, I wouldn't bat an eyelid if I saw any one of these 20 drivers' names being put down for F1 sim racing in the coming years. Because they are all so talented. It's just about how they're going to use this experience to be able to boost themselves slightly further up in the orders.
Of course, and that's why we do see some of the teams take all their dev drivers. Teams such as McLaren, Ferrari tend to use a lot of their dev drivers, or some of the ex-esports drivers that have came from other teams and recently moved into their team, because they want to see who can be the right fit for the team. Obviously, we all know in F1, especially in F1 esports, there's always a silly season, and we see people leaving and joining all the time. Teams have got to be prepared to bring some of the young upcomers up into their team, just in case someone leaves last minute, or maybe there's a bit of a disagreement and someone parts ways. They've got to make sure they got someone there reliable to step in, and that's why they give their drivers the experience here in E-Series, because you race against a lot of the other drivers who are also looking to fight and get themselves into esports in the future. And one of those that I think definitely will be looking to do that in the future is Daniele Parodi, a brilliant talent. Obviously, I believe coming over from PlayStation recently, moved on to PC, and I've got to say, he's adjusted well. It doesn't even look like he's actually swapped over. Some drivers tend to have a bit of an adjustment period, but he's came onto PC, and he's been brilliant, if not quicker than he was on the console side. So I'm excited to see what he can do. And being in a team such as TRT, they've got esports experience. Obviously, Amos Lariso owning the team. He was back with Ferrari a few years ago. Drivers like him and other drivers in TRT can learn a lot from having someone who's been in the esports scene.
Yeah, exactly. Like we take, for example, TRT. They've got David. Davidson. So I did get his first name right. I'll second guess myself there. I shouldn't. I've got that one. You know, F1 sim racing world champion or esports champion at that moment in time. You know, you sit there and you consider, right, okay, how are these drivers going to be able to improve off of a knowledge base that they've got there? Of course, all the engineers working behind the scenes as well. We've got a variety of engineers. We've got some of the best engineers in the game, and then we've got the likes of Seb in the chat typing saying he's not engineering tonight. But let's be honest, come on, Seb, get back on the engineering board. They need you, mate. You're fantastic. But again, just understanding that not only is it a learning sort of predicament for the drivers, it's for their entire staff. All of them are going to be able to understand, work together, and try and maximize their performances as a whole against some of the biggest and best names in sim racing. And that is something you cannot recreate no matter where you go in sim racing. It's only here in E-Series. So make sure, if you're not already aware of a couple of these young guns, keep a note on them, because you will see them in the coming years. As Otis Lawrence, he's a joke, isn't he? Let's be honest.
A brilliant lap there with a 1:40.630, nearly 2 tenths quicker than John Evans, who goes up into second, as Patrick Sipos goes up into third ahead of Tiger Hardy in the top four. Let's have a little look at the man of the moment, Jarno Opmeer, the man we're all here to see. Of course, making his E-Series debut here for the Red Bull Sim Racing team. We'll see what he can do as Declan Barrett, his teammate, goes up into second place, and Thomas Ronhard goes up into third for the R8G team as Jarno heads his way to the final corner now. And up towards the line, we'll see what the Rebel driver can do. And what will it be for Jarno? A 40.688 goes up into second place, just behind Otis Lawrence. And remember, last season, we raced here at Belgium. Otis got P2 in quali, and he won the race. So he's brilliant to run this circuit. He's got experience of it. So it's going to be hard tonight to beat Otis. You know, he's definitely a man we can put on for pole, and he's done it before. He's won the race before. He's just got to do the same again. And I think he can, I think a driver of his status can do it. You know, he's always consistent. He's never up and down on pace. He's always at the top, which is certainly something that Aston Martin will be looking for, as his teammate, Joost Noordijk, unfortunately, is currently in the drop zone on a 141.069, along with the two TRT drivers, Kai Pearson and Gabriel Quintino. And Kai, I think, was on a lap, but must have made a mistake as he's backed off, and he's now going to be heading back into the pit lane.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. It's a long lap around Spa, understanding when to abandon. And yes, this would have been his flying lap, but just realizing, okay, right, maybe I've messed up an entry somewhere. Maybe I've just mispicked my braking point. I've locked up a little too much. I'm just going to abandon. I'm going to go back to the pits. I'm going to set a new set of tyres on, saving himself 2 minutes of trundling around this this circuit in order to be able to get back out with the rest of the field to keep to a run plan, which, of course, race clutch engineers would have been working so hard to be able to sort of conjure and manufacture in a way which would benefit them the best. But with that being said, it does add a little bit more pressure to the driver. We've seen it time and time again, where drivers don't get their first lap on the board, don't put a banker in, and then you see them feeling the pressure, trying to maximise every little millimetre of a circuit when they might not necessarily have to, picking up another invalidation, and then we're saying goodbye to him in a stage of Q1 or Q2 of the qualifying. And for a lot of the times, with drivers who end up find themselves in those scenarios, you would say should be making it through to Q3. Yep. But again, it is just one of those things where we will just have to keep an eye on it and understand that not every driver is perfect. Let's be quite frank.
Yeah, I don't think any of them are perfect, because everyone can make a mistake.
I don't know. I reckon if you were here, mate, you'd be quite good. I reckon you'd be perfect.
Well, I'd be consistently slow. So, I'm consistent at one point, but I definitely would not be that quick. I mean, my lap times would be roughly around what they were setting when the rain stopped, when they was in the 43s. That's where I'd be. because I certainly am not a quick driver on the game, hence why I just waffle over it. And I always go back to that quote that Fernando Alonso said. I can't remember who it was to, but it was to a failed F1 driver who was one of the pundits, and he said that you're only a commentator because you're not going to be a world champion or something like that. And I'm like, well, I'll take that with pride. I'm not a good driver, so I can talk over it instead. And I'm sure Josh, after the race at Silverstone that we took part in, I think he'd be a little bit lower down on the list than me.
Oh yeah, I'll struggle to find my way into the lobby, to be quite honest with you. We'll change it from friends only to invite only, just to make sure I wouldn't be able to join because I didn't want a collision in turn 1. But I would hold a record for the most overtakes heading down into turn 1 because I just wouldn't brake.
Yes.
But with that being said, these drivers, they're a lot more professional than we are, aren't they? They understand, the levels. Because not only are they representing themselves, we've already touched on, they're representing the brand, but they're also looking to try and develop themselves into what would be a more well-rounded driver. Philip Rochnader, once again, going out. McLaren have adopted this, going out early malarkey, haven't they? They want to be the first ones out on track. They want to get, that little bit of what would be clean air, but considering everyone's got clean air, it feels a bit wrong to say. But they want to be able to establish their lap times at the front to build the pressure on those drivers slightly further down the order. The likes of Jarno, who's rolling out the pit lane, and Daniele Parodi going to be the last two out the pit lane. They want to create a little bit more pressure for them. Will it happen? Again, it's one of those things we're just going to have to wait and see. I would love to know in the chat who you would like to be able to drive. If you could drive anyone on this grid as somewhat of a development, maybe have a coaching session with them. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, SRC. Who would you like to learn from? Because for me, there's a couple drivers here which I would like to learn from. And to be quite honest with you, I would also love to... I reckon Otis, for me, personally.
You reckon?
Yeah, I reckon, because he's got that dog in him, he's got that fight in him. Regardless of whatever he's put in, wherever he's, racing, he'll always drive like a madman. And it's one of those things that you can't really teach. I'd just love to be able to study and understand a little bit more about why he races to that degree. But what about yourself, Nathan?
You know what? I'd rather coach myself, to be fair. I feel like I could do a better job.
Malone is saying you as well, mate.
Well,
I don't know.
Maybe I'll become a coach in the future. I'll be in commentary and become an SRC coach. That's it. So Yorick, get me signed up as a coach. That seems like the perfect job for me, even though I don't know how this game works, because every year they change it dramatically and it's never anywhere near what it was the year before. But we can see a few cars heading out onto the circuit now, of course, on their flying laps. Philip Pressured being the first one, of course, part of the McLaren team, and Szymon Lekomski being the second driver out on a lap, who is also part of the McLaren lineup as we head our way down into Lacombe. And yet again, still got that glitch with, for some reason, debris flying up out of the car when they jump over that curb. I mean, there's no debris coming off the car, and there's certainly no damage, but the game likes to imagine there is.
Did you not chuck the McDonald's bag in the braking zone?
Well, believe me, if McDonald's bags are made out of black metal, I'll be very surprised and I'll be very worried.
I would be surprised at that point, to be honest with you. But we are seeing Philip Rochnader absolutely sending it through. Double left-hander here, absolutely fantastic. Using all the track, left and right side, absolutely fantastic before. He's going to be trying to pick the braking point. You can see him once again using the curb. It's absolutely crucial around here to get the car rotated in. Make sure you're bouncing off the curbs left, right and centre. As he's going to be flicking it here once again, just about to enter into that third sector. Again, another very strong outing here. But with that being said, it's all down now to the last couple corners. Qualifying is technically over. These lap times are going to be so important for the drivers left, right and centre. So let's have a look what Philip Rochnader is going to be doing all the way up towards the bus stop chicane.
Of course, we'll see. What can Philip do? Of course, in P6 at the moment, would certainly like to be making his way through into Q3 as he heads his way through the final corner up towards the line. What will it be for Presneda? He goes up into third there with a 40.729. What about Lekomski? Can he make himself even more safer in the Q2 session? He goes and stays seventh, doesn't improve. What about Kai Pearson? Needs a lap on the board, and he goes up into P8. That might not be safe here for Kai Pearson as he drops into P9. Daniel Kai goes up into P7. Otis Lawrence improves to a 0.561. Patrick Sipos goes up into 5th place, and Kai Pearson is out of qualifying, so no race clutches are going to make it through in towards Q3. John Evans goes to the top for Ferrari ahead of Otis Lawrence, and also Lekomski gets dropped down into the drop zone, and Ronhard might be under a bit of pressure here as he didn't be able to improve, and no worries because everyone behind him couldn't find enough as Tiger Hardy spun at the exit of the final corner and has a bit of damage, so he must have lost it on the power, and he will cross the line in P15. So the big story there R8G have a driver race in Q2, and Race Clutch have no one going through into Q3.
Well, E-Series, what can I say? It is ridiculously unpredictable, and that's part of the beauty of it. But we are seeing a couple shining stars, aren't we, in this qualifying session? None other than John Evans leading the way here in Q2. Is he going to be a bet for pole? I'm not sure. We'll have to ask chat about that in a couple minutes time. Followed by Otis Lawrence, Declan Barrett, Jana Wattmere, Philip Reschneider, Josh Nordyke, Patrick Sipos, Thomas Ronhard, Gabriel Quinto, and Daniele Parodi. And we know how much these drivers like to work together when it comes towards the race. You sit there and think, Red Bull have got both their drivers through, Ferrari have got both their drivers through, and Aston have got both their drivers through. Are they going to be in a pressing position to be able to work together in the opening laps, to be able to jump themselves up a couple extra positions? Because we know how important it is to be able to defend together and go on the offensive together. It's going to be nail-biting stuff, and to be quite honest with you, I reckon we could just skip Q3, go straight into the race. Bob's your uncle. Lovely stuff.
Well, I mean, as you said, Red Bull, Ferrari, Aston Martin, with both drivers through into Q3, they are three of the teams fighting for that championship lead and fighting for that championship over the whole season. And having them all together in the top 10 means we will have some interesting, we will have an interesting race because they're all so close together and they will all fight so hard because they know they've got to. They've got to be winning. If you're Ferrari, you've got to be getting those P1s and P2s. If they, I'm sure John Evans would love to get pole in Q3 because that gives them such an advantage going through into the race. Of course, with Rieslington being down in P17, I think he will, if he stayed there, of course, will do around 6 or 7 points. John Evans would take 35. So, you need to be at the top, and that's the issue with E-Series because everyone can score points. The difference from first to, in the bottom 5 is so big, and that's why Race Clutch can't afford to do this every week. I know this is the first time they've had a driver race in Q1, probably in the last 2 or 3 seasons, or at least it being one of the rare occasions, but they can't afford to do this again, and they've got themselves into the Championship League position. And they've had a couple of issues in qualifying that now leaves them starting P14 and P17.
Again, it's just learning from mistakes last week. It's going to be learning from mistakes this week and seeing how we're going to be able to bounce back and somewhat overcome that, because it does knock your confidence when you make somewhat silly errors, when you do go for the bold strategy calls which don't pay off. You do look like you've got a bit of egg on your face, but at the end of the day, we're not here to make omelettes. We're here to race. So it's going to be absolutely crucial for these drivers to really be able to bounce back, for the engineering staff to come back and think, right, okay, game face, back on, let's get back to the grind. We know what we're capable of. There's a reason we're leading the standings over the likes of Ferrari, Red Bull, Aston Martin, R8G. We know what we're capable of. Let's get back to it. And that's going to be absolutely pivotal for the rest of the season, to be quite honest with you, because we know how easily it can be affected. As we do see Gabriel Quinto here making his way out on his outlap. But we do have a quick comment, I should say, on the YouTube live stream saying, if you boot up Minecraft right now and kill a dolphin, I will subscribe. Nathan, mate.
Well, I would do, but I haven't got Minecraft installed.
No, you wouldn't, because dolphins are precious creatures. Okay.
True, but
they give you treasure.
We need someone to subscribe. We need the subscriptions, but I also think that Tim should subscribe either way so that you can come back next week and be able to watch some more re-series action once this race is concluded, because of course we're here now until we've got another 4 weeks of E-Series, I believe, 5 including this one, and the championship fight's getting closer and closer. You need to make sure you get the subscribe button clicked and also get the notification bell on so you know when to come back next Friday, because we all know that Fridays, it's the end of the week, we all relax, and you might forget a few things here and there, and we don't want you forgetting to come here and watch E-Series along with our PlayStation tiers, the PC tiers, and of course PC F1, which is on the Wednesday. So you need to make sure that you get notified so you can come and watch along, because the action is always intense here at PSGL. But we want to know as well, guys, in the chat, who's going to take pole position? Because I'm going to say John Evans. I think he's going to do it. He did it in Q2. I reckon John Evans can take pole. But we want to know in the chat who's going to take pole position, because any of these 10 drivers can do it. And I think on their day, everyone has the capabilities to do so.
Oh, it's a tough one. I don't want to give a prediction yet, to be quite honest with you. Gabriel Quinto is going to be starting his lap. I suppose if I'm going to be pressured at this point, I feel like it would be, unwise to bet against the likes of a Jarno, an Otis, a Declan, a Thomas. We've all seen what they're capable of. But at the same time, you could say it'd be unwise to bet against John, but you've already picked John, so I'm going to go, and I'm going to say Otis. I'm going to say he's got a boost of confidence signing his new deal with Aston Martin. I want to see what he's going to be capable of, because I know he is very much Big C's favourite here at PSGL. Let's not beat around the bush. He loves him, doesn't he?
He does indeed, as, well, Quintino doesn't love the track limits at Lake Commas. Unfortunately, he has suffered an invalidation, so this lap won't be completed. We need to try and find someone who is on a lap, and the unfortunate part is because a lot of people are in black liveries, I need to try and scroll through to find the right person. And it will be Peroda, who's heading down to Rivage now currently. Of course, wanting to try and get TRT a pole position. Would love to get them a top 5, as they haven't been able to do so yet this season. And of course, we mentioned Parodi earlier. Definitely a driver that the esports teams will be looking at in the future to become one of their devs, as he is a brilliant talent in the community. As he heads his way out of the Pouan corner in towards the Lafania chicane. And of course, just carrying all the minimum speed through the corner as you head down towards Stavalo. And we'll see what Daniele can do on this lap, but certainly should be a driver I'd hope to see look for the top 5. It might be difficult, but I think he can do it.
Yeah, we know what Tandem are capable of. We see it every single week. They get in and amongst the big dogs, so to say. They're always just being a little bit of a disruptor, aren't they? They're more than happy to get their elbows out. They don't care who they're racing against, and that's part of the beauty I love with these community teams, because they do all have a vicious bite when they want to, and when they want to try and scrap hard for a position, they will not let it go easily. So Daniele Parodi is going to be one to watch, especially for the race starts. We do see Otis Lawrence there following him directly across the line, getting a 1:40.4. We can expect these lap times to keep falling away, and that is a terrifying thing, because we can expect to maybe see slightly towards the lower end of the 40s, if not maybe even in the 39s if we're going to be very fortunate, but it would take an absolute rocket ship of a lap in order to get that.
It certainly would, as we can see Patrick Cepas there go up into 3rd place behind John Evans and of course behind Otis Lawrence, who we can see share the front row with Declan Barrett provisionally as he goes up into 2nd with a 1:40.496, and Thomas Ronhar there into P4 with a 1:40.648, and they will see what can Jarno Watmir do, currently in P9, but of course hasn't set his lap time just yet as he heads his way down towards the bus stop chicane. Can it be a provisional pole here for Jarno Watmir as he exits the final corner, heads up towards the line? What will it be for Watmir? It will be P3 just behind his teammate, about a 10th separating Declan and Jarno as they head down, as he heads back down in towards turn 1 to go and conclude that lap. But at the moment, Red Bull looking strong, 2nd and 3rd, but Ferrari also looking strong, sitting P4 and P6. But a team that would like to be a bit higher is definitely Aston Martin, as Joost Noordijk is staying in P8.
Yeah, not ideal there for Jost, especially considering what his teammate's able to do. Putting it on provisional pole. But with that being said, that run all the way down the Kemmel Straight on lap 1, is pole really the best place to be? I wouldn't necessarily say so. You're going to have to dump a lot of your battery to retain it going into the braking zone. So maybe a little bit of masterminded trickery here from Joost Noordijk. So a little bit further back, get a little bit of a slipstream, get himself a good run, and then he can try and hunt down the rest of the field. As Unai Vega saying, is Ferrari or Red Bull recruiting? And Big C's just clapped back with a very cheeky message. I probably won't read that one out on stream, but it is lovely to see so many familiar names. Of course, Big Willie Gibson. You can't miss him, can you? You can't miss him. And then, of course, we've seen Jona Infratic, a couple of the Ferrari gang rocking up as well. It's going to be fantastic to see how we're all going to feel after lap 1, because for me, it wouldn't surprise me if we see a little bit of contact between a couple of these drivers. When it gets very close, very competitive, it's bound to happen, no matter what the skill level is. Just fingers crossed no one's going to be out of the race. That's what we're saying.
You know, I've always been one of those as a commentator. I love a bit of contact. I love a bit of carnage in a race. For me, sitting there just following each other behind and making DRS music boring, you need a bit of contact. You need some proper hard racing. So, you know, I've got to say, I'm quite excited for that factor, because this race always brings brilliant racing. You know, you have contact, you have cars going side by side in corners which you don't normally expect, and that's what makes E3 brilliant. Because when you got 2 championship contenders fighting together, it makes it so much more valuable, and you know the outcome of it is really telling for one of the teams' championship future. Of course, just say for example, Ferrari get a pole position, and run the lead of the race, get into an issue, get into contact, and end up out of it. They've lost possibly 35 points, which in this championship is a lot. You know, that's only double the gap back to McLaren, who are in 7th.
Yeah, you add that as well. You said if you're battling one or two other teams, mate, they're not battling one or two other teams. We've got basically a 5v5. We've got a 5-a-side here, boys. That's all I'm saying. It's going to be absolutely mayhem, especially when, you consider a couple of these teams, they're going to be really hungry. Example, Race Clutch, they're going to be battling their way through the field. They might be willing to take a couple extra risks, while if it somewhat stays the way it is, you could imagine the likes of Red Bull, maybe a Ferrari, not necessarily looking to go on the hunt all too much. They're just looking to add a couple extra points, try and extend their own personal leads.
Yep.
With that being said, Philip Presneder, another one of those drivers who will be looking to try and execute an absolute maximum, going a little bit more aggressive, trying moves which you wouldn't traditionally see, as you mentioned. For me, that's what makes these series so special. You get those opportunities to really not only represent, a team which you may not have the opportunity to represent in F1 sim racing, but you also get an opportunity to showcase yourself, to showcase how hungry you are to get a couple of extra points for the team, and being such a great advocate for that team. Williams are going to be a prime example of that in this race. I want to see what they're going to be able to do. Starting on the back row of the grid, unfortunate for them, but we know both of those drivers are incredibly talented. So for me, I want to see them try and make a march in towards the top 10. And potentially, given if we see any more of the weather coming round, potentially even, into the top 6. It'd be a big ask, but for me, it's on the cards.
I mean, Williams, I think, can definitely get one of the drivers in the top 10. They've both got the skill to do so. They've got to work their way through a few drivers, which might be a little bit slower. It might not be on their pace. But I think a top 10 is definitely more than possible for one of those two drivers. But we all know that everyone here will be starting in the top 10. And they're all going to be trying to fight for that pole position. The first car going to be setting their final run will be Philip Presneder, of course, for the McLaren team, as he heads his way down in towards the bus stop chicane, exits the final corner, of course, runs wide to get the most speed on the exit. As you head your way down to turn 1 with that DRS, and this is all or nothing now. You've got to put everything into the lap. You've got nothing to lose, especially when you're down in 7th place. You want to put everything into the lap here and try and take that pole position away. Of course, back in Austria, Jack West got himself up into Q3 and in the end took the race victory for the McLaren team. And another race like that could easily put McLaren into that championship fight as Philip now gets the DRS open, heading down towards the Laycombe chicane. It's do or die here for everybody on the grid. And the famous quotes from the one and only Chris Buxton, it's the banzai phase.
Absolutely. All these drivers are going to be going gung-ho to try and get themselves as far up the grid as possible. And it's part of that which adds a little bit more pressure. John Evans invalidated his outlap, so he's still on a valid lap. Let's not beat around the bush, but showing how much he was trying to push the car, getting the tyres warmed up, getting into the operating window he's looking for to be able to maximise on his delivery for a flying lap, as we do see Philip Presneder absolutely nailing the apexes there. Brilliant stuff for chucking in here over towards the chicane, over to the left again, using the curbs to rotate the car. You cannot understate how crucial that is to maximise your lap time around the circuit, but flicking it over once again, a little lock up on the right to get the car rotated before it's now going to be full throttle all the way from here down to the bus stop chicane. A little bit of battery deployment as well. You can see, I'm not sure whether we can see his steering wheel, but you can see he's deploying as much as possible, moving all the way down to the bus stop chicane, trying to eke out every little kilometre per hour this car is looking to try and give, taking the shortest run possible before picking a braking zone just past 100 metre board, get the car flicked in over the curb on the right, back towards the left, straighten up the car as soon as possible, up towards the line. Where is Philip Presneder going to be able to put himself up into P3? Fantastic stuff from a McLaren driver, but we've got many more drivers looking to try and improve our lap times. Next up on the list is John Evans here, Nathan. Where's he going to be able to put his car?
Well, he's up by nearly 3/10 in that middle sector here, so John Evans is certainly a driver looking to try and take that pole position away from the Aston Martin of Otis Lawrence. He heads up to the line, and John Evans does go up to provisional pole position, but many drivers still looking to improve on their laps. So go on board in practice C-Pass, as we can see Gabriel Quintino go up into P6 there for Veloci Academy. A decent qualifying for the team as Otis goes back up to pole position with a 40.278. Now, what about the Red Bulls? As we can see, Yara Watme head his way down towards the final couple of corners. Just Nordic goes up into P6 there for the Aston Martin team. Declan Barrett, can he take pole? No, he can't. What about Yara Watme? Can he take pole away from Otis Lawrence? No, he stays in 7th place. What about Thomas Ronhar up to the line? And I think it was P4 there, or maybe P3 for the R8G driver. It's P3 for Thomas Ronhar, but I've got to say, a big surprise for Jana Watmia to start down in 8th position.
I feel like he might be doing something to do with his Twitch points there, to be honest with you. Everyone predicts him to finish below P4. But with that being said, Thomas Ronhar had a huge slide coming out of the bus stop chicane. That would have lost him a little bit of time. the drivers who were able to get round the lap cleanly and be able to get themselves a great result. Otis and John starting on the front row, but is that the most beneficial place to start? It will only have to wait and see. Thomas Ronhar, P3. Declan Barrett, P4. Invalidating his lap time. Not able to improve, but starting P4, so I don't think he'll mind that too much. Philip Perezneda, P5. Patrick Sipos, P6. Jos Nordijk, P7. Jarno, P8. Gabriel, P9. And Daniel Brody rounding out the top 10 here. Looking at 3/10 difference between the top 10. Around a track like Spa, that's not a lot of time at all.
It's certainly... It's not. You know, it's a bigger track than most. To have a 3/10 gap, you know, you look at tracks like Austria, nearly half the, you know, the lap time's nearly half, and you're a tenth apart. So, you know, 3/10 around here is definitely rather a small gap. But of course, a brilliant job from Otis to get it onto pole, for John Evans to get himself up into second place. And I believe, of course, we will have our restart. Now, I'm not entirely sure. Do we leave the lobby or do we stay in the lobby?
We stay in the lobby, we retire.
Because Otis...
That's the quickest way to do it. Otis has already left the session. He's looking to try and get himself out of there as soon as possible. He's going to be running to go grab a bottle of water or a quick refreshment, because I cannot imagine what his vocal box is doing at the moment, because he would be screaming at the top of his lungs, as we've seen. Also, Thomas leave the session. Oh, dear me. Shame on these guys. Shame. Let's have a little name and shame. But I believe that might be the first ever time in E-Series I've correctly predicted a driver to get pole.
Well, I got second. And me, to be fair, Josh, considering the commentator's curse exists every week, we've done a good job there to predict the top two.
Yeah, and you did a great job with the Williams jacket as well.
Yeah, I'll ignore that
P19
part.
and P20.
Yeah,
we'll just forget that. It's on the bed now. It's not a problem.
Well, we've been told we're staying in the session, but I've seen about 5 or 6 people leave. So I'm going to do what I'm told and stay. But we are going to quickly move back over to the intermission screen quickly, as of course we have the boring stage of the lobby being set back up once again. And yes, even more people are leaving here, so I'm not quite sure what the plan of action is. But I did see earlier a few people asking about the standings, so we will quickly pop them on the screen once again. And of course, you can see Race Clutch at the top of the standings, but starting P14 and P17, definitely not a way they want this race to go. And of course, with Ferrari starting on the front row, they are second in the standings on 164, with Red Bull in third, Aston Martin fourth, and RH in the top 5, all separated by 27 points. And then Veloce Academy down in P6. And I've got to say, Josh, Veloce Academy have been a bit of a weird one this season, because they're up in P6. They're only 50 points off the championship lead, but we haven't really seen much of them.
No, to me, something else which is a little bit odd is they're doing better than McLaren.
Mm-hmm.
And you sit there and think, right, McLaren surely have got a bit more resources. You know, if I'm not mistaken, they work with Veloce to get their drivers, and you add that into this, you know, narrative of Veloce Academy being a lot more of the young guns, the drivers who are not quite ready for F1 sim racing. I mean, you take a look at McLaren and think, well, if these lot aren't supposed to be ready, surely you should be ahead of them. I feel like it's only been a matter of time before I switch over, but for the young drivers over at Veloce Academy, despite them not necessarily getting, you know, the stellar results they're looking for, the podiums, it is very hard to come by with a grid this talented. Being able to turn around and say, right, we're halfway through the season, we're ahead of McLaren. They get cherry picker of drivers here.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have done absolutely fantastic, and that will be one of the biggest confidence gains they will ever be able to get in sim racing, knowing that, you know, the McLaren Shadow F1 sim racing team is underperforming and you're overperforming, to give you that little bit of extra oomph, so to say, to be able to get yourself, you know, maybe a couple of extra positions, maybe just carry a bit more confidence, maybe you have a couple extra attempts in qualifying. It can add so much with such a small, minute detail, depending on how much you want to sit and read into it. And that works the other way as well. Let's not beat around the bush. We know McLaren haven't had a great start. Williams haven't had a great start. They cannot let it get to them. They've got to sit there and think, right, heritage of our team. We know exactly what we're doing. We've come back from worse. We just need to somewhat settle it out a little. And that's absolutely fine. Not everyone's going to have a perfect start. Take Ferrari for last year, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, they had a really poor start, didn't they? You know, they had to use a couple of their strong drivers quite early in, but by the end of the season, they was leading by about 50 points going into the final round. So certainly not over yet for any team. But before we head our way back in, we're going to have a quick word from our sponsors over at Sim Racing Centre and GT Omega. And we are back. So, of course, a big thank you to Sim Racing Centre and GT Omega for helping make this series possible. Of course, I believe GT Omega are helping fund the prize pool, and of course, SRC being supportive to us as always. And I presume Bob's in the background as usual, Josh, isn't he?
Yes. Bob's always in the background. Hold on, my microphone arms there. There we go. Bob's always in the background. He's sitting next to my Red Bull keychain. Bless
Always
him.
watching on.
He's always watching. And whenever I'm racing, I'll tell you what, I've got a great story. Right? I know it's waffle time. I apologise, everyone. It's what I do best. I know a lot of you don't like my waffle, but you're just gonna have to deal with it. I decided, whatever possessed me, I booted up Rensport. I know. Shame on me. Booted it up. Was a hypercar around Belgium, and I wasn't paying too much attention. But you know, the way my desk is, wheels not on the desk. It's a separate platform, but I do still sit relatively in a similar position. And I have no idea what happened, but I was heading up for a Rouge Radion in the hypercar, and Bob fell on me. I think Bob was telling me to stop trying. It's never going to happen. But Bob is a brilliant thing SRC have done. He's the little mascot. He's absolutely fantastic. Similar to their setups as well. Another shameless plug. I know, hold me. I'm sorry. But their setups are absolutely fantastic. You get an opportunity to use one. I'd highly recommend it. They're a great base point for anyone at any skill level to be able to develop from. If you're not too familiar with setups, you can just use the base one and still be competitive. And then at the same time, if you are, I'm not going to say, the likes of a Ron Horror and Altmere, because let's be honest, they're just jokes. If you are towards more of a competitive level, like yourself, Nathan, you can adjust a couple things here and there just to suit it up for your driving style, that a little bit more. And for me, having that fluidity to be able to do that, it just makes it so much more worth it. It's not like a Coach Dave Academy sort of setup where you get the setup and you've got to stick with it. Otherwise, it's against the law and it's undrivable and you'll end up spinning and it's a mess, right? You can have a little bit more freedom to maybe change your ride height, maybe change your front wing, and just give yourself a little bit more confidence. But waffling done, right? There we go. Surely.
I mean,
What?
I'm sure we'll have more of it, Josh. I'm sure you'll give us some more waffling as the race goes on. And I just want to clarify, I'm not crying. My eye is absolutely killing me. So yes, I'm not upset about Bob. I'm just I've just got a really itchy eye, and it's not fun at all. But we're going to head our way into the race session now. We're just going to pop it up on our screen, and you can see the loading screen very shortly. And Josh, prediction quickly. Weather, what's it going to be? Quick.
Inter.
Oh, okay.
Light rain.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, no, scratch that. It's going to be heavy rain, but everyone's just going to go on intermediates anyway.
Well, that's normally what happens. Yes,
Traditions.
The wet tyres never get used in esports. Never did they get used IRL either. So it's a bit of a useless tyre to say the least. As we'll just wait for Declan Barrett to load in, probably back to tab back in, and then we can head into the preparation stage of the race where the drivers have to select all their settings, get their strategies sorted out, have a chat with their engineers, and all the stuff me and Josh don't have a clue about. But Josh, I wish you luck, because this could be a rather interesting race start here tonight.
Yes, I'm very much not looking forward to it, to be quite honest with you. It's going to be absolutely fantastic, but I will be out of breath within the first 3 seconds if we end up getting contact at turn 1. Fingers crossed it won't be that way. We'll just remind everyone we do have collisions for griefing disabled. So theoretically, I'm not saying this could happen, but let's say, let's go for a King Grundorp. If he wanted to try and, plow the entire grid and take out 10 cars to try and get his teammate a couple extra points, that is potentially something which could happen, but that won't happen because we don't have repercussions for it. Connor would absolutely lose his marbles. Everyone in chat, you would slate him, let's be quite honest. But let's just remember, everyone makes mistakes. So even if someone does get a tap into turn 1, sometimes it might not necessarily be their fault. It might be the hardware. But without further ado, we are going to get the 5 red lights underway here for Spa-Francorchamps, round 6 here at E-Series. And it's lights out here, and away they go, heading down into turn 1. Otis there with a brilliant start over on the right-hand side on the soft compound tyre, beating out John Evans, Thomas Ronhart up into P3. Cars going in tandem, 2 wide, even 3 wide, slightly further towards the back. But Otis doing exactly what he needs to do on that soft compound tyre, getting away from the rest of the field and creating a little bit of a buffer for John Thomas, both on the hard compound tyre. A beautiful mix of compounds up and down the grid. We should be seeing some absolutely fantastic moves left, right and centre, and one of them might be from Jos Nordijk as well here on the soft compound tyre, already looking to try and pull out from the rest of the field. Drivers already chucking themselves onto recharge mode, deploying as much of a battery as possible down the Kemmel Straight, and it's all going to start filing out into a little bit more of a reliable order. But let's have a look at some of the positions gained and lost. Jarno just gaining a position back up there into P8. Patrick Seapots looking to try and dance all the way around the outside here in Sector 2 before heading into Speaker's Corner, otherwise known as No Name. Again, a little bit of wheel tapping left and right between both the Ferrari and Red Bull team. Looking just there to try and get it down the inside, but decides to back out, fight for another day. A more sensible approach, but as far as things go, Philip Presnade, Jos Nordijk both gaining a position. Declan Barrett losing to Gabriel Quinto, but Brazilian Mastermind gaining another 2 positions there. Brilliant stuff there from him and Veloce Academy.
Of course, as we can see, Nordijk now looking to make a move ahead of Presnade as they head their way around Curb Paul Frere. Heading down towards Bonchemont corner to conclude lap 1 of 22. Otis Lawrence has a 1.5 second lead, so no DRS will be enabled for John Evans on the next lap, but it will be for all those behind now as we have a brilliant battle heading down towards the bus stop chicane. Jos Nordijk up the inside of Presnade. Also, we can see Ron Haas just sitting back because he wants that DRS off of John Evans as we head our way out of the final corner to begin lap 2 of 22. And Otis Lawrence has a 1.8 second lead now, so it's constantly increasing as the laps get underway now. And we can see further back there, Quintino looking to make a move ahead of Declan Barrett as they head out of turn 1, heading through towards Eau Rouge and Radion, and Declan Barrett now losing a position. And now the 2 Red Bulls sit together in P7 and P8. Definitely need to try and figure something out if they want to improve, but of course we know that they're on the set at the hards at the moment. They are the worst tyre as Ron Hard takes P2, Presnade takes P4, and also we can see Declan Barrett looking to argue here with Quintino, but can't find a move as they head their way through towards the Lacombe chicane as Presnade now gets ahead of John Evans heading down towards Ravage.
Ridiculously late send up the inside after the Kemmel Straight. Fantastic stuff. Jos Nordijk as well, following through. John Evans, you can see that hard compound tyre isn't in that window yet. It's not working exactly how they would like. But you do have to say, for both the Aston Martin drivers, a very bold call to go on that soft compound tyre. It's not the preferential tyre around here. It's not the tyre you'd be looking to try and go towards. You'd be looking for a medium to hard, hard to medium. By going on the soft, has it perhaps put him a little bit of a detriment towards our second half of this race? Only time will be able to tell, but one thing is for certain, we are going to be getting a lot of action-packed driving here as Otis is looking to try and storm himself off in the distance. Let's not forget, once that first round of pit stops are over, he'll be a lot closer to the rest of the field because they'll be on a more competitive tyre than him. So, with everything falling somewhat in the way of how it's going at the minute, we will have to just be mindful, keep an eye out for Yost, see what he's able to do. Both Red Bull drivers together, are they going to be able to work together in an effective manner to be able to get a couple of extra positions? And then Race Clutch as well, getting Kai up into P10, Reese into P14, looking to try and close up the gap a little bit more, as we do see Will Lewis losing out of position to Tycho Hardy as well. Not an ideal start for Williams cars, but down there on the medium compound tyre, expect to see Ben make a couple moves throughout the field as well.
Of course, and I'm not sure what happened to Tycho Hardy, as he was in P15, but now drops then to 19th behind Will Lewis, so definitely not the way Tycho Hardy's race would have wanted to go. And also Leo Lund, who's now at the back of the field in P20 as we head our way back up to Eau Rouge and Radion once again and down the Kemmel Straight in towards the Lacombe chicane. Philip Presnade now takes second away from Thomas Ronhart, and we can see Jos Nordijk gaining in quickly as well, but no move can be made by the Aston Martin esports driver, and still in a very strong position are Aston Martin sitting first and fourth. This is certainly the top of the result they need if they want to get up to the top of the standings, as we see them head through in towards Ravage and back out towards Speaker's Corner at turn number 10. And then we can see further back as well, Otmir and Barrett looking to get ahead of Quintino, but just can't find that move, and that's the issue you sometimes have when you know you're a bit quicker. But of course, obviously, with the battery being different in this game, it means Quintino can save it all up, and once Declan wants to make a move, Gabriel can just burn it quickly and stay ahead.
Yes, absolutely. And you've got to think as well. Put yourself in Gabriel Quinto's boots here. He's got Declan Barrett behind. Okay, no worries. Right, we'll defend it to the best of our abilities. And then he looks even further behind him. He's got Jarno Otmir. It's not an easy thing to mentally comprehend. Yeah. And then on top of that, you've got the McLaren driver. You've got Kai Pearson. There are a lot of people there, which he might be a little bit, you know, in awe of, a little bit starstruck. Yeah. And that's completely normal for a lot of these younger drivers. But it's going to be about how they're able to keep it going, how they're able to keep their, you know, their mentality and nail themselves back into the race. We quite often see and hear in real Formula 1, once the visor goes down, that's it, they're in race mode. The friendship's out the window, they're looking to try and perform. You don't necessarily have that in sim racing, do you? Because you can always look over to your other side of the screen, perhaps see a Discord message, perhaps remind yourself, okay, right, I actually quite like Declan, he's a very good mate. but I'm having to defend him here, and I know it's going to cost him time. I know it's costing me time, but I'm doing it for Veloce. I'm doing it for my academy. I'm doing it to try and maximize the amount of points I can get. With that being said, heading once again down the Camel Straight with DRS, we will see more moves left, right, and centre. Jarno getting a jump, Ronhar getting a jump, Gabriel Quinto getting a jump on John Evans as well. Very promising things. Jos Nordijk sneaking himself up the inside there as well. Surely now for Jos, he's got to be looking to try and get into P2 and maybe try and play a couple of mind games here, try and back up the field a little bit, give Otis a little bit more breathing room. But when he goes into the pits off that soft compound tyre, that's what I would try and do. But with that being said, it's a lot easier said than done, Nathan.
It certainly is, and you've got to remember that safety cars are still a possibility here. Someone makes an incident, the safety car does come out. So, of course, that gap at the moment being 2.6 seconds. It's all good when you're there, but one mistake now, and that gap instantly goes back down. So, Otis and, of course, Jos there can't take too much for granted here, as, of course, they are realistically on the worst strategy, considering their tyres will definitely go a lot shorter than the others, but of course, if it goes to their plan and no safety car comes out, they can easily get into the pits, especially Otis, come back out and probably still have an advantage over those because of how big the gaps are. So the drivers behind, he just got to make sure he pits on the right lap and at the right time, as we can see. Quintino now looking to make a move ahead of Presnauda down towards the bus stop chicane. Veloci Academy looking to try and fight for a podium position now. Goes up into 4th place. We'll have the outside line down towards turn number 1 at La Source. Can we see the move complete? Yes, we will. Gabriel Quintino into 4th place. He started in 7th, and I've got to say, what a brilliant job here it has been by Gabriel Quintino. Veloci Academy haven't had a podium since race 3. They definitely would like one now, and Quintino can definitely deliver one with the pace he's been showing so far.
Yeah, it's on the cards for sure, especially considering he's on the medium compound tyre. And he seems to not lose too much time in comparison to the likes of Jos Nordijk. Yes, we will have to mention those tyres are now 4 laps old, but Jos is still showing they've got more performance than the hard compound tyres, using the DRS there to get past Ronhar. Now, this is going to be a critical stage for both of the Aston Martin drivers' races. They've currently got the 1-2. Do they want to try and get Otis back towards Jos so they can work together and defend this lead, or are they more than happy to let Otis go off into the distance and kind of use Jos as a bit of a cork in the bottle for the rest of the field? Only time will be able to tell, because when you consider it and you think deep down here, you got the likes of Ronhar, you got Philip Presnauda, you got Gabriel Quinto, John Evans, Jarno, Declan, Simeon Lekomsky, Kai Pearson, all in the top 10, with every single driver apart from, you know, Otis inside this DRS fest. It can be very, very easy to maybe get caught up in an instance. So maybe giving Otis that little bit of leeway, as you mentioned, if a safety car does come out, it can be very detrimental, not only to him, but also to his teammate, of the overall points haul of Aston Martin come the end of a race. But that is an if. Let's just preference that, because otherwise it would be an absolutely brilliant idea.
Of course, but looking yet again, of course, with the fact that Zotier doesn't really exist in this game, look at the, the backing up as they head down towards the bus stop chicane. None of them want to go through because they all want that DRS, and then people are forced to make it overtakes. As we head down to the chicane, we can see Quintino now on the outside of Ronhar, couldn't quite find the move and sticks in behind just for now. I'm on board here with John Evans, who's also got everyone down to P20 behind him. We've got a full train from P2 to P20, as we can see. Presnauda looking to make a move ahead of the Veloce Academy driver. They go side by side, heading out of turn 1, down towards Joe Roos and Radion, and we can see, I think, Quintino decided to lift off a bit there, knowing there's no point going side by side, there's no point losing more time to the cars ahead, but John Evans is on a charge, he's using his battery now, looking to get ahead of the Veloce Academy driver, as we can see Ronhar go back up into 2nd place, and we can see John Evans to the inside of Quintino, but Quintino goes to the outside of Presnauda in towards turn 6 to go at Laycom. It's going to be Quintino back into 4th place and still fighting hard with Presnauda here as they head their way around, and now John Evans gets pushed wide by the McLaren Leves. Jarno Opmeer through 2 moves into 1 corner. Jarno Opmeer up into P5 and Declan Barnes up into P7, and Red Bull making that move work and getting up a couple of positions because of 2 mistakes by 2 drivers.
Very opportunistic. That's what the drivers in this field are going to be having to look out for, is those moments where people are racing a little bit too hard and you can maximize a little bit of leeway for yourself. Grab a couple extra positions, because we know how difficult it is to overtake in a DRS train. We know you will have to deploy the battery, you will have to sit in the slipstream, you will have to depend on your tyres being better than the car you're trying to overtake. It can be so challenging, but all it takes is one mistake from a car in front of you. If that puts everyone slightly at the back, even, you know, by half a tenth, it gives a great opportunity to be able to make the move. That's exactly what we saw there from Jarno and Declan, both jumping up a couple of positions. But with that being said, Gabriel Quinto is doing a fantastic job holding it down currently at the moment in P4. Jarno looking to try and make a move here in towards the bus stop chicane. Is it going to pay dividends by end of the Kemmel straight? Only time will be able to tell. Going too wide through the bus stop chicane. They will have to be careful here just to make sure Yoss doesn't pull away anymore because he's almost out of that DRS range. That's going to be pivotal to make sure they keep within the DRS, because if the train breaks, it's going to be so difficult to try and catch back up to.
Of course, but look at this now. The soft tyres are starting to die off a bit, because look at the gap. It's now 1.7 seconds. It was over 2.5 earlier on in the race. It's come down by nearly a second over the matter of a couple of laps. But we can see now, Quintino yet again looking to charge onto the back of Philip Presneda. And I've got to say, for a driver that's up and coming, a young Brazilian looking to battle with some of the greats that have been in esports for a long time. And he's still going to try and fight hard, but Declan Barrett does make the move and gets up into P6 now. And will be trying to fight back and trying to catch back up and be with his teammate as we see the drivers head down to Rivage corner once more. And we can see Thomas Ronhaar still having a battle here with Joost Noordijk as they head their way out of Rivage in towards Jacket's corner or Speaker's corner, or even no name, whichever you want to call it. And they now head down in towards Puon corner. And that gap has increased again. The battling has really cost them time, and that's the only issue they've got. They need to be able to stick together, but also it could be a result of possibly Joost Noordijk maybe lifting off a little bit more here. You can see he's lifting off heavily. Look at this. The gap's already at 33 seconds.
He's been a cheeky devil, isn't he? He's trying to help us out whatever way possible. But with all that being said, he knows it's only going to be a matter of time before the cars around him get a pace advantage. He is on the soft compound tyre after all. We will have to just remind everyone that he won't be able to stay there forever. So it's going to be up to him now to try and find a brilliant opportunity to try and back up the rest of his field, to give Otis the best opportunity to grab the maximum points, fastest lap, and also, of course, the race win. With that being said, we've got many drivers behind, squabbling for position, going too wide through bus stop chicane here once again. And we could be on here for maybe a recipe for disaster. We know Thomas Ronhaar, we know Jarno Opmeer. They've had a rivalry in the past. It's not all swept under the rug, of course. Still very, very bitter rivals looking to try and maximise their own points here for their respective teams. Now on track together. Perhaps fireworks might be around the corner here, Nathan.
Of course, and we can see Jarno Opmeer's got a massive straight line advantage for a second on Thomas Ronhaar. He will use his battery. Joost Noordijk gets dropped by 1, he gets dropped by 2, and now it leaves Ronhaar and Opmeer to battle for second place, as we can see Presneda now go up into B4 ahead of Joost Noordijk. That gap between first and second is just over 2.8 seconds now as they head their way down towards Rivage corner. And that teamwork has worked well here for Aston Martin, because that gap came down to 1.7. It's now back up to 2.7. Gives Lawrence a little bit more time now to choose when he wants to pit. Gives him that advantage for a little bit longer in this race. But we did see Gabriel Quintino here and Kai Pearson make their pit stops. And I think the reason they pitted so early was because they're losing so much time battling. They're thinking, right, we pit earlier. Maybe we can get an advantage over all of those battling for position, or those battling for that P2 spot, as Declan Barrett now gets up into P5 ahead of Joost Noordijk, who's just tumbling down the field. He's got to pit soon. Maybe in a couple of laps he can go in and go into a set of the hard tyres. Maybe go into a set of the medium tyres. We'll see what he chooses to do now as we head our way around the final sets. They're heading in towards Bunchemont corner at turn number 19, and we'll see who goes to pit next. Of course, many drivers on a set of the mediums. We might see those pit Bean, as we did see Quintino and Pearson pit, but also they might leave it a bit longer and go for that mega overcut on the suit that already went in, as we do see Joost Noordijk enter the pits.
About time. I was about to say Thomas Ronhaar caught Otis there by 8 tenths that lap without the benefit of DRS. Jarno and Philip as well. You would think if they were all able to somewhat effectively trade for DRS with one another, they'd be able to catch up Otis by maybe an extra 2-3 tenths here. But with that being said, Otis, he knows he's going to have to pit. He's just stretching out the soft tyres as much as possible. He's got the track position. He could potentially fall vulnerable to maybe an undercut. And that's a very odd thing to say, isn't it? But we have seen a couple of medium tyres pit. Perhaps if maybe the likes of Philip, maybe Simeon Lekomsky pit now to go over to a set of hard compound tyres, they just give themselves a little bit more of an opportunity to really try and maximise the amount of time Delta will be able to gain on the likes of the Jarnos, the Ronhaars, the Otises, out towards the front, and jump up a couple of extra positions here and there, because that's going to be absolutely crucial for the track position. With that being said, let's not forget, Spa is a traditional circuit. You can overtake at. It's a miracle they still exist. But with that being said, it can be made awfully difficult, as we saw Jost there as well. On, not necessarily the greatest tyre, not necessarily having all the battery to play with. And no, DRS did a fantastic job to try and hold off the rest of the field, back up the pack a little bit. It is capable. It is promising signs, especially if you're looking to try and grab somewhat of a George Russell strategy going in, make sure you get the track position. It can work. You've just got to be very tentative. But the key thing I just want to point out, Jost has gone onto a set of medium tyres.
Yeah. It's a lot different to what it's a lot different to what the others have chosen to do, and I've got to say, for the first few laps he will certainly have an advantage, but he's got to take them a long way. I think 13 laps he has to take these in this race, so it'll be a long way for the mediums to go. As we can see, Godendorp and Lewis swap position, and we can see John Evans there make a pass ahead of Marcel Biega, as we do see our race leader Otis Lawrence enter the pit lane now for the Aston Martin team. Of course, another thing to mention is on this game, of course, the pit lane penalty for speeding is now 10 seconds and not 5. So you want to make sure, even if you lose a few tenths by braking a bit earlier, do so, because you don't want to get a 10-second penalty, because on this grid, that will drop you to last. If you was in first and got a 10-second, you drop all the way down to the bottom of the field. So drivers have got to make sure they're wary of that 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, as we see, of course, Otmir and Ronhard get closer together now as we head our way in towards Les Combes. And, of course, these two have came to contact many times, and this being one of them, this circuit here, Spa, Francorchamps, of course. I think back in a couple of seasons ago, they had a bit of an incident down at Rivage now, where Thomas Ronhard unfortunately had a spin due to contact with Otmir. So these two, will see how they get together on track. Nowadays, it's been a few seasons since their boiled up rivalry, but I'm sure they will still fight as hard as they can, because these two are also fighting for the championship. R8G and Red Bull are currently sitting 3rd and 5th in the standings, and they're only 8 points apart. So I think the gap between 1st and 2nd is around 8 points. So, this could really put R8G ahead of Red Bull, or at least on par with them, depending what Ronhard can do in this race, and hopefully if he can try and defend against Declan and Otmir.
Yes, absolutely. But you will have to consider it is a 2v1. Although, let's be quite frank, we saw it in real F1, we saw it here before. The team which always seems to get the numbers always seem to find themselves ahead, and it's an easy thing to overlook, right? But you do have to remind yourself, as Seb has correctly done in the YouTube chat, it is a team championship at the end of the day. You can do whatever you want to try and get yourself as far up the grid, but you are bringing the points together as a unit, and that's going to be a key thing, as we do see Simeon Komsky dive into the pits as well. I was going to make a comment saying both of McLarens are next to each other as well, could potentially start to work together. Perhaps maybe that's what they're looking for here, to try and maybe get a little bit more of a battle flowing with Red Bull, because they've got the pace. It's very clear they're holding onto the back of Otmir, holding onto the back of Declan. They were in a position on that medium compound tyre after the 11 laps to still battle with the hard tyre. Considering how poor the medium tyre can be around here, it's fantastic to see. But we will notice as well, Otis, Jost, they're still within DRS to one another. Only 6 seconds off the back of Tycho Hardy, and there is a break in the DRS train. Of course, that'll be Reece Linton, who is now going to get swarmed by Leo London, Patrick Seapost, heading down the Kemmel Straight. It's an unfortunate race so far for Race Clutch, but it'll all be about trying to make the most of whatever situation that they have currently at their hands. And at the moment, it's not looking the greatest, but let's not forget, everything can flip at the blink of an eye, so to say.
It certainly can, of course. At the moment, Gabriel Quintino is in net position for 3rd, which would be superb for the Veloce Academy team. Of course, took a P3 back in the first round, took a P2 back in round 3, and now looking to try and get another podium here in Belgium as we head our way through Speaker's Corner. And Tycho Hardy gets a 3-second penalty, and in a race like this where everyone's so close together, a 3-second time penalty will really harm you more than it would on other circuits and in other racing situations. But I've got to say, Tycho just hasn't looked dialed in at all. This whole race has been at the back of the field pretty much the whole way, qualified P15, and now has a penalty to his name as we head our way around Block Sharon down towards the bus stop chicane. And still, many drivers yet to make their pit stops. 12 of them, in fact, haven't made a pit stop yet in this race, and we'll see, do any of the leaders go in? No, they all stay out here, but we do see Daniel Coy for TES go in the pits. But I've got to say, it's an interesting strategy here by some of these drivers, Josh, to go so long, because yes, they're going to have an advantage on tyres, but they're going to have to work their way through so many people, because the undercut drivers are going to have such an advantage because they pitted so early.
Yeah, it also adds a little bit of that mystique to it as well, doesn't it? Are any of these drivers really going to be looking to try and get themselves onto a set of soft compound tyres for the end? Is that necessarily going to be worth it? As we do see Philip Prochnet is still on that medium compound tyre, still showing he's got the grip to be able to follow through turn 1 up through Eau Rouge Radion and hold on using the DRS down the Camel Straight. A little bit of battery as well to get the jump on Jarno as Jarno falls back behind Ronhar as well. But we're going to see this pivotal point now in the race where the drivers who have already pit, they've already made their stop, need to work together effectively, have track mates alongside them to trade the DRS, to trade a little bit of battery as well. With all that going on, we can see Philip Peroschneider here doing a fantastic job on the medium compound tyre. Yes, he's a little bit slower through the apexes of these corners, but he's doing exactly what he needs to do to try and hold off the likes of a Ronhar, Jarno, Declan, because at the end of the day, they're all battling side by side. They're all looking to try and maximise for points. Simeon Komsky's already dove into the pits. They're already going to have a great opportunity to battle these guys and get the track position ahead of them. All he might have to do is maybe let off a couple of extra kilometres an hour through the likes of Blanchimont into the bus stop chicane. And then you could be looking at, okay, right, that's another 2 temps, another 3 temps here and there to get themselves into a more preferential position as a team, as a unit. And that is going to be the key for the remainder of this race.
It certainly will, and I've got to say, I think Rebel are certainly in a very good situation here. Of course, sitting 3rd and 4th as none of them choose to go in yet. Many drivers still looking to stay out here. John Evans also looking to stay out on... No, he doesn't. He goes into the pits, and we do see Angelo and Daniele, of course, stay out on track for the TRT team. So going out late on their strategy, and then we have a brilliant battle behind. We can see Leo Lund leading a train of 6 cars down towards La Source corner. And then further back, we can see our race leaders entering turn 1 as Otis makes a massive send on Tycho Hardy in towards the first corner. I caught that one just as it ended as we head our way through. And I'm not sure if damage was given to Tycho Hardy because of that move, but Tycho will send it as they make contact heading up Eau Rouge and Radion, and that could have certainly ended badly for both of those drivers now as they head their way down towards the Lacombe chicane. We can see Otis Lawrence and Tycho Hardy take it side by side. We can see Reese Linton there move to the inside. Otis is blocked from making a move. Tycho Hardy goes back up into 9th place and they all squabble through. They're nearly going 3 wide, heading through into towards Malmedy now. Tycho Hardy with damage still fighting hard, and Otis Lawrence is getting frustrated now. He wants to make the moves. He's being blocked from fighting for the win, and also we can see Joost Noordijk as well getting involved. They get pushed off circuit. They go 3 wide into turn 9, and Joost Noordijk gets sent round but collects the car. Now, I've got to say, it looks like there was something personal between those 4 in that battle, because none of them was letting anyone through.
I think last season's MVP, Season 3 MVP, Tycho Hardy, took that dive bomb personally. He doesn't want to let Otis pass in any regard, defending for his life. Not only is he doing a fantastic job of keeping it on the track and keeping this battle going, but at the same time, he's helping his teammate. He's helping Ronhar get a better opportunity to be able to defend a potential lead here of, the undercut that both the Astons were looking to try and go for, as we do see Otis there offering Jost a little bit of a slipstream to help him get past. But with all that being said, they've got to hope very, very quickly that the cars in front either go into the pits or don't put up anywhere near as much as a fight, as we see Tycho Hardy go for an absolute send of the inside. A little bit of contact there. We'd said rubbing is raced at the end of the day. Everything should be going back to a level of normality here. But with that being said, Otis and Joost still looking to try and make moves throughout this grid as Reese Linton is next on the chopping block. We see Otis there taking it round the outside, not looking to try and send it down the inside. With that being said, Reese has got the batteries to battle this one back, and he'll be looking to follow through Eau Rouge, Radion, deploy the DRS, deploy the battery, and try and get that overtake sorted back on Otis Lawrence. He's not letting Otis take this position away from him. He's still battling in his own regard for P7 at this moment in time, despite needing to go in for the pits. But with that being said, he gets the position back ahead, and it's going to be another middle sector. Otis is going to have to sit and wait behind at this moment in time. Ooh. This must be absolutely painful. There's even more contacts. My word.
Well, it looks like Reese slowed down, and Otis just drove into him as they went through. And we've got Ronhar and Linton fighting hard as well now as they head their way out of Speaker's Corner. And I've got to say, I knew some of the battles would be personal between the teams, knowing they would have fought for a championship. But, well, that was... we've had some interesting action indeed. We can see further back there, Ronhar and Hardy, they're coming into contact. Tycho Hardy, I think, looks like he went round for a second because he's lost many positions. And the drivers are fighting very hard here for their track position. And I've got to say, Paul Kryptonite, because he's going to be a busy man over the next couple of days with this battling, because everyone is going hell to leather for a couple of positions, and Aston Martin still come out on top here with Noordijk, who's got a penalty. But I'm sure because he got sent round, that could get removed for the Aston Martin driver. But we head down towards the bus structure cannon, and we've got Kai Pearson sending it and goes off the circuit, trying to overtake Leo Lund.
And Leo dives it into the pit lane. He wants absolutely no more part of that. with that being said, Patrick Seepos is now the next car on the chopping block, leading the way down into turn 1. Jos Nordijk, Otis Lawrence following in hot pursuit.
Oh!
This time, Patrick goes for a slightly wider line, looking to try and get that cut back, get him a DRS, and hopefully he's going to be looking to try and make a move, as he will be pulling alongside Otis Lawrence, heading into Eau Rouge, up towards Radion, going side by side, losing a little bit of time, a little bit of wheel hooking there as well. But with that being said, Patrick is going to get so much of a better run. He's out to the lift because Jos has moved over to the left-hand side. Both of them now deploying the battery, going 3 wide at the end of the Kemmel chicane. Kai Pearson's looking to get himself back involved as well. For some reason, Aston Martin seems to have rubbed up the entire grid the wrong way, because they're having to battle tooth and nail for every position of these cars still out on track on the hard tyre they started on. This has been absolutely terrific to see left, right and centre. And now Ron Haar's getting himself involved, dancing around the outside there of Kai Pearson. And now he's looking at the back of Jos Nordijk's car, realising a victory is on the cards here for him.
Well, what a race we've got on our hands now. Ron Haar making a move through Poo1 ahead of Jos Nordijk on the outside. Otis is going to block him off, so Ron Haar can't make the move. The two Astons come into a bit of contact as they head their way through. And we can see Thomas Ron Haar go through on Jos Nordijk and Kai Pearson now, looking to make a move ahead of the Aston Martin, but just can't quite do so as we head our way out of Kerpool Fair now down towards the Blockshot corner, and of course down towards the bus stop chicane. We can see Ron Haar sending up the inside. Patrick blocks through, and Ron Haar makes a move past 2 cars. What a move from the R8G of Thomas Ron Haar, who goes up into the net. Race leader Otis going to have to hang back for now because he wants that DRS down towards the Lacombe chicane. But what a move we've seen so far. What battling we've had between the drivers, and Patrick Seepos, of course, having damage, drops down to P4 and now puts Kai Pearson into a position to fight for a podium. He started down in P14 and nearly takes out Jos Nordijk heading in towards the source corner.
And you know what, Mia has just made his stop, and he's going to be coming out in the middle of all this in P12. He's probably looking in front of him thinking, what on earth am I going to get myself into at this moment? This is going to be absolutely a mess. Declan Barrett as well, another half of the Red Bull team looking to try and squabble his way through, but so many cars, having the DRS, having the slipstream, deploying the battery, it's looking all very much nip and tuck in that middle pack there between cars who have all got different tyre compounds, different longevities of tyre as well. This could go any which way possible for any of the cars from, you know, P2 down into P10.
It certainly could, as we can see Jana Watme here making a move ahead of Patrick Seepos as they head their way through. And it will be Jana Watme now up into P11, looking to fight for that top 10. Next on his list will be Daniel Okoye. He goes to the inside, as we can see his teammate make a move up the inside as well. 2 Red Bulls making 2 moves into P1 corner. Declan Barrett into 8th, and Jana Watme now up into P10, as we can see John Evans now. Look at the position he's in. He's on 3-lap old medium tyres, and he's on the charge here, looking to make a move ahead of Szymon Lakowski, who's on the 5-lap old hard tyres as we head our way through. Out of Stavelo up towards Kerpool Frere, and then we can see John Evans on the attack. Declan Barrett as well following in behind, and we can see Jana Watme battling yet again with Gabriel Quintino to the outside. Goes Watme, and Quintino doesn't really fight that move because he knows he's not got any defence at all against the Flying Dutchman. As we head our way down towards the bus stop chicane, we can see Philip Presnay make his pit stop for McLaren. And the net race lead is still in Thomas Ron Haar's hand ahead of Otis Lawrence. And Kai Pearson has done a superb job to get himself up into 3rd and having to defend off many drivers on newer tyres and on softer compounds.
He's just going to have to try his all to keep within the DRS here, hasn't he? He's not made it easy for himself in the dying embers of this race. With that being said, 5 laps to go. These drivers all know what's at stake. A lot of points on the line here in E-Series. And of course, points mean prizes. And every single one of these teams wants a little bit of that cash injection. As we are seeing Jano make the move on Declan there. A very organised swap going back within the slipstream, back within the DRS, as we're going 3 wide here at the end of a Kemmel straight between Simeon Lakowski, Jos Nordijk and Kai Pearson. Kai still on that hard compound tyre. He's being forced towards the outside. This is where John Evans is going to get a great run, heading down in towards the right hand and going towards the inside. He's got to be very careful because the car naturally wants to push itself out wide here. But again, a brilliant move there from John Evans, showing why he's made the switch to Ferrari and how much of a valuable asset he's going to prove to be for the remainder of E-Series here. Up into P4, trying to chase down Simeon Lakowski. And of course now Otis Lawrence and Thomas Ron Haar broke the DRS to the cars behind. It'll be down to them to battle out for the lead and hopefully keep everything on track in good regards, so we can have a fantastic battle until the end of this race. And with that being said as well, given the tyre length of Otis already being 7 laps old on that medium compounded tyre compared to the rest of the drivers behind, especially the likes of Jarno, Declan on 1 and 3 lap old medium tyres, you would expect them to catch up at a rapid rate and not as soon as they end up getting out of this squabbling, or if they're able to get out of this squabbling, I should say, because it can last until the very end of a race. As Jarno goes for a move around the outside of Blanchimont, it wasn't quite able, but he's going to get more traction. Heading into the bus stop chicane, it'll turn towards the inside, and he should be able to get that move done on Kai Pearson on the older hard compound tyres. Kai, he's trying, bless him, isn't he? He's doing everything in his power.
He is, but those old hard tyres definitely aren't going to be able to put up much of a battle. Kai, though, does send it on Declan Barrett in towards La Source. Can't make a move. We can see Quintino there looking to battle ahead of Joost Noordijk up into P8 for the Veloce Academy driver, and a superb move to put himself back up comfortably into the top 10. Now we have a battle here for 4th and 3rd place. John Evans looking to make a move. Jarno Opmeer making a move. As actually Ron Haas broken the 1 second gap, so he's got a comfortable lead now. As Jarno Opmeer looking to make 1 move ahead of Lekomsky, looking to make 2 ahead of John Evans in towards Lacombe we go, and Jarno Opmeer goes up into 3rd and makes for the 2nd time 2 moves into 1 corner. Jarno Opmeer now is on the charge. He's on 2 lap old medium tyres ahead of him. We got Otis Lawrence on 8 lap old tyres. Jarno should easily catch up within a second and make a move ahead and put himself possibly into a position to win this race. And we can see as well Lekomsky being overtaken by Declan Barrett and Red Bull. This has been a strategic masterclass so far. They're sitting 3rd and 5th. They went from hard to medium, and now looking to make possibly a double podium as Reese Linton gets the penalty and Race Clutch in P7 and in P18 with a penalty. This certainly has not gone in any way they would have wanted it to. They might even drop down to 5th because of how short the points gap was going into this race.
Exactly, and now the question remains. Jarno's caught up to the DRS here. It looks like it's going to be Ron Haas' race to lose. Otis had so much control in the first stint, being on that soft compound tyre, but it's all coming back to pay dividends to those who have paid more of the patient game on the tyre strategies, using the mediums, using the hards from the start. They lost out at the start. It is looking very much like Jarno Opmeer is going to be looking to try and take P2 and challenge Ron Hard towards the end of his race for the race win. Declan Barrett, John Evans having a fantastic race as well. Let's keep an eye on them because anything can happen in these series. We will have to remember that, but I will have to ask the question to chat. Who do you think is going to be able to take away this race win? Because there is so much on the line for each and every single one of these teams and drivers. I feel like it's going to be impossible to pick. But with that being said, Jarno is going to get a fantastic run here on Otis down the Kemmel Straight. Is he going to be able to make the move this lap, or will he have to wait another lap to get the move done? He sees pulled over to the right-hand side, down the inside, easy as you like. Otis not looking to fight that one whatsoever. He's going to be looking to try and use Jarno's DRS and let Jarno use his tyres to catch back up to Ron Hart, and then we could be in for a potential 4-way fight, maybe even a 5-way fight for the race win here. This is absolutely ridiculous.
It certainly is, and we can see, of course, Opmeer on better tyres than Ron Hart, and the gap's coming down quickly. It was 1.6, it's now 1.4 as we head our way in towards P1 corner at turn number 12. We go to the left, and you can see just throws the car in a lot more confidence. Jarno Opmeer does have the many others due to his tyres being a lot younger and having a lot more grip on them as we head our way in towards the Lafanya chicane. And Opmeer would like to get back into that 1 second if he can before they get down to turn 1, because of course you get that DRS heading up Eau Rouge, heading out of Eau Rouge and ready on down that Kemmel Straight. That's where you get that great speed advantage, and already we can see Otis nearly being dropped by Jarno Opmeer. That gap 0.7 of a second as we head our way in towards Blanchimont corner. We've got 3 laps to go as we head to conclude lap 19. It's Thomas Ron Hard that leads ahead of Jarno Opmeer. The gap's 1.4 seconds back to Otis Lawrence in 3rd, but John Evans surely will be in the position here to make the move and get himself onto a podium because he's got 3 lap better tyres than Otis, and also that gap between Jarno and Otis is increasing lap by lap, and it's not going to be long before Otis loses that advantage DRS.
Yeah, exactly, and correctly pointed out there by Stoned in the chat. Cars are locking up. That is just a feature of this game. You will have to lock the car up in order to get a little bit more rotation. So let's not try and pin anything on the tyre degradation. We're all feeling the exact same sort of deg at the moment as we do see John Evans pull out alongside Otis. Otis this time looking to try and defend at least a little bit for the likes of John and Declan, but both of them being able to get their moves sorted down the Kemmel Straight. Otis Lawrence, it's gone from riches to rags for him at the moment, hasn't it? It's not looked like the best second half of this race, but given the strategy he was on, he's looking to try and maximise everything potentially possible. But Philip Reschneider on that soft compound tyre, we will have to keep a special eye on him. He could very much be in for a potential podium place here. With that being said, John and Jarno, that gap has opened up to more than a second. Jarno's almost caught back up to DRS of Ron Hart. Real question is, how is the battery levels looking between the top, realistically, 6 drivers, because any of them are able to deploy the battery and be able to try and get a little bit more of a pace advantage going down the straight, which is going to add for so much more compared to those who are struggling with the battery. I can't wait to see what's happening here.
Well, you know, when I see this battle here, Thomas Ronhart, you know what I mean, I think back to 2021, you think back to Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, 2 rivals looking to battle it out here for a race victory, and the gap is less than a second now. So you know what me has got an advantage. He's got that DRS as long as he doesn't mess up this chicane. Brakes nice and late, gets the car turned in nicely, using some battery to catch back up within a second. And has he got the DRS down to turn? When I heard the beep, that means he's got DRS heading into turn 1. He's now going to get it yet again up towards the Kemmel Straight. Into turn 1 he goes. Of course, Ron Hart's going to be fighting for his life now to break that 1 second gap, which he has for the moment. But I think you know what, we will still get that DRS advantage. And look at the gap between himself and John Evans. It's flew up to 2 seconds now, and Declan Barrett is in a perfect position to try and make it a 2-3 for Red Bull.
Yep, Declan, they're deciding to try and make a little bit of a cheeky move on John, just trying to get anything sorted whichever way possible, as we are seeing Jarno, who's firmly within the DRS at this moment in time. Declan making a move up in towards P3. Philip Prejnader as well, jumping ahead of Declan into P3 of that soft compound tyre. Philip Prejnader here, he's going to be looking to try and do what Ron Hard did earlier and try and break the toe and break the DRS of Declan and John behind, but they're not going to make that easy. They're not going to let that one happen one singular bit. They're going to be looking to try and hunt Philip all the way until the very last corner, until the bus stop chicane on lap 22. It's part of a parcel, and the way it will be flowing, Thomas and Jarno now need to be somewhat aware of how much they're battling, because it could very much fall into Philip Prejnader's hand. This could be a great opportunity for Philip Prejnader to potentially try and take a race win away from Ron Hart and Jarno, depending on how much these two want to battle. It's coming down to the wire here in E-Series. I'm not sure which way it'll go. I can't make anything. I'm losing my... I don't know. I don't know, guys. Please, let us know. Predictions. Let's hear them. Because at this moment in time, Jarno Otmir looks like the driver to beat, given he's got the DRS. But is he going to move this lap, or is he going to try and save it for Blanchimont next lap? That's going to be the key. Is he going to try and look for a move into the bus stop chicane or up the Kemmel Straight?
It's going to be an interesting. We go into the final lap of this race, and you know what, up the inside of Ron Hart. Ron Hart wants to go behind to get that DRS. They're fighting, and that's Philip Prejnader looking to make a move, and Philip Prejnader takes the lead heading into turn number 1. But the issue he's got now is those behind will get that DRS, but what can he do? Can he defend it on those newer soft tyres? Ron Hart and Otmir go side by side, heading through in towards Eau Rouge and Radion. This is the battle for second place and could be the battle for first, and it will be Ron Hart who takes second away. Otmir nearly spins and nearly collects the back of the R8G as we head our way down towards the Lacombe chicane. Thomas Ron Hart takes the lead. You know what, me goes into second, and Declan Barrett now looking to fight for second place as Prejnader gets dropped and drops down to P5 as we head our way now in towards the Malmedy corner, and Ron Hart and Otmir still battling for that lead as we head to Ravage. And still, Josh, you don't know which way it's going to go, but these two are going to battle side by side all the way to the end.
Absolutely, and Ron Hart's rear end does look a little bit twitchy from riding on board here with Jarno. With that being said, Jarno's rear end doesn't necessarily look stable either. Both these drivers pushing to the absolute maximum. If you thought they were just showing up into E-Series to fill out numbers, you were sorely mistaken. They're here to battle until the very end and try and get whatever result possible. And you've got to consider both these drivers now are going to be looking to try and stock up as much ERS as possible through this middle sector, as well as Declan, John, Philip, and Otis are all behind. All of which have a great opportunity to try and make any moves happen, left, right, or centre. But Ron Hart is currently leading the way down into Blanchimont. It's all to play for here, Nathan.
And the question is, can Ron Hart, can Otmir take the lead? Can Declan Barrett take the lead? Or even John Evans as we head our way in towards the bus stop chicane? This is the final opportunity to fight for the lead as we head ourselves into the final couple of corners. Otmir sends it late on Ron Hart as we see them exit the final corner. Ron Hart and Otmir still going side by side. Declan Barrett as well as we head to the line. And it's Otmir. Jarno Otmir takes the win for Red Bull ahead of Declan Barrett and Thomas Ron Hart, making a 1-2 for the Red Bull Sim Racing team. They did it back in Jeddah, and they've done it again here in Belgium. What a superb battle to the end, and Ron Hart loses 8 on the win. He loses 8 on 2 positions by less than a tenth of a second. What a battle to the end. Oh, Red Bull timed that perfectly. They made it work. And what a race. No words at all.
What a debut into E-Series for Jarno Otmir, picking up a win. His teammate following him alongside by 8 thousandths of a second. Thomas Ron Hart falling to P3. Heartbreak for Thomas, but we know how strong he is. We know he's going to bounce back. But my words, What a ridiculous finish here around Spa-Francorchamps. We knew it was going to be an exciting race, but Nathan, I don't think any of us could have predicted that.
I certainly couldn't. I mean, you know, we started off with a brilliant qualifying. We went into the race. We saw so many different strategies. Then we had that about 3 lap of just everyone hitting each other. And then we get presented with one of the best final laps I've seen ever in commentary. Absolutely superb. And John Otmere rightfully takes that top spot ahead of Declan Barrett and Thomas Ronaro in the top 3. And John Evans as well in 4th place. But Otis Lawrence, Aston Martin doing a little bit what Race Clutch did. They made a bit of an issue on the strategy. I don't think that soft medium was the way to go. And unfortunately, Otis Lawrence drops down to P5 ahead of Philip Presneder in P6 and Daniele Parodi in 7th place for TRT. A superb drive for Tassam Racing Team. And then Lekomsky 8th, Daniel Kaya 9th and Kai Pearson in 10th place. And then we have Angelo Dortenzio in P11, Marcel Biega 12th, Gabriel Quintino 13th, Kiam Godendup in 14th, followed by Leo Lund, Patrick Seaposs, Reese Linton, Toga Hardy. And then we have Waloose, who would have been a little bit higher, but he's disconnected. And same with Joost Noordijk. But what a race we've had. I mean, that race has got to be the best race I've ever seen in E-Series. And I've been here for 3.5 seasons now. It's got to be the best race I've ever seen. So, no words.
No words.
It was
no,
battling throughout every single lap of the race.
I know George put out a tweet saying he's fed up of saying it's been the best race of the season so far after every single race. And it very much mimics exactly what's happened in E-Series, because with each race going on, the stakes are getting higher, the drivers want it more, they're pushing harder. It's absolutely ridiculous. But at the end of the day, Red Bull walking away with another 1-2, a huge point haul for them. RH up at P3, looking to try and just manage a little bit more. But McLaren, again, another good points haul for them. P6, P8, moving themselves slightly further up the standings. It'll be so interesting to see, especially with the next round being Imola, how the drivers are going to somewhat be put out there and chosen for the lineups. Who's going to be able to try and pick that? As we're seeing quite a few comments saying better than real F1. By all means, it's been absolutely fantastic. I don't feel like we could have wished for anything better here, Nathan.
It was, yeah, I mean, real F1 gets thrown out the window completely because this was absolutely brilliant. I mean, I know it's the fact this game's also unrealistic, which makes the battle interesting, but either way, it's brilliant, isn't it? Absolutely brilliant. But we're going to quickly head over to the interview screen just in case we can get some of our drivers in for a quick interview.
I'll tell you.
Which would be great to see.
I'll tell you what we could do beforehand. Thank the people who have made this one happen. Of course, we've got SRC, GT Omega, both of which made it happen. Absolute legends. But I do believe we do already have a couple of the drivers already in the interview room. And I do believe it'll be our, let's say our Red Bull duo, P1, P2, both Declan Barrett and Jarno Otmere. So let's have a cheeky word with them. Declan and Jarno, congratulations on the 1-2. How on earth did you cook up that masterclass, guys?
Do you want to go, Jarno, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, you go.
Yeah, so I think Otis going on the soft sort of threw a spanner in the works because he was quite slow at the end. So I think there was a lot of bunching up, which sort of helped us. It was enabling us to go long in the first in with Thomas, and then Jarno sort of just made all the overtakes, and I just went through after him. So it was basically just all Jarno, and I was just sitting behind, just saving battery and just overtaking after he overtook.
Josh?
I mean, realistically, we've got all 3 podium sitters in here now, Ron Har as well. How did you guys manage to navigate any of that traffic which was going on? Because that seemed absolutely ridiculous from our standpoint. Everyone was battling tooth and nail, left, right, and centre. How did you guys manage to navigate that without picking up any damage, guys? I mean, we'll start with Jarno this time.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was quite easy. On the second stint, I had such a big tire advantage at that point. There were people with damage. So I was kind of just jumping from one DRS train to the other. I didn't really have to do much. I felt like, at least in the second stint. So, it was all quite easy apart from the last 1.5 laps, where it got a little bit chaotic. But I knew that was probably going to happen. And it worked out well because it helped Declan catch back up to the leaders as well. So it worked great in the end for us. The traffic, if anything, it helped us massively. It wasn't really an issue for us at all. So of course, the fact we went long in the first stint, and then people slowing each other down in the second helped. Of course, it kind of made our race a little bit. So yeah, wasn't too hard.
Of course, and obviously going through into that second stint, you left it later because all those, in the mid pack were really battling hard. Do you reckon that you would have finished a lot lower down if they didn't have all that contact and all that battling?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it depends what way you look at it. Of course, we went longer in the first stint because we saw people staying out and helping their teammates. So yeah, of course, on the same strategy, it probably wouldn't have gone great, but it did in this scenario. And yeah, not much more to add. I think so. I think it worked great, the strategy. Maybe next time there's no battling and it won't work. So yeah.
Yeah, indeed. It was a superb drive from you both. So congratulations, Declan, on the second, and congratulations, Jarno, on first. I hope to see Red Bull get first and second again. They've done it twice, so maybe they'll do it for a third time next time out. So thanks, guys, for joining us, and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. So next we'll speak to Thomas. So welcome in, Thomas. A great race from yourself, but quickly explain to us, because I think he was involved in that bit of contact in the start of the second stint. What was going on with everyone? Because everyone started hitting each other all of a sudden for about 3 laps, and it really cost you all time to the end, didn't it?
Well, the thing was when it started in the first day, like lap 2 or lap 3 already, with Joost being on softs and Otis on softs. I was quite shocked that even people started on softs, because we tried it in the first like my first test race, like 2 minutes before the session, and I instantly found out the softs died after lap 2, which was the case for Otis. He had a very good lap 1 and 2, but after that the gap just started to shred, and I nearly got into the DRS when Joost decided to overtake, and then the gap increased again to like 3-4 seconds, so I had to catch again to Otis, which I think on the in lap of Otis I did, but I didn't get the DRS on the back straight. So yeah, the first stint it was very chaotic, but in the end it didn't really change much in terms of the order. Then the second stint, they wanted me to go short, so basically pit early, get in front of the pack as early as possible to avoid any chaos. But I decided to stay out a little bit longer to kind of avoid that and a bit of freshness on my tires. In the end, I should have probably gone even longer, probably the same lap as Jarno or 1 lap earlier than Jarno. But again, that's looking at the end, and there's always if, and yeah, I had to deal with it unfortunately a bit earlier than the rest, so I had to get through, fortunately without damage. So eventually I could pull away from Otis, which was inevitable. He had way worse tires, and I was quite surprised he still managed to stay with for a few laps. But eventually, when the tires are above 25, 30, 40%, it's game over after that. So yeah, I saw Jarno was gonna catch up right at the end, so I always thought he was gonna catch up no matter what. It took a bit longer than I anticipated in the first place, but when I saw he was in Madeira's lap 21, I just put in non-ERS for the whole lap to recharge from 10 to 100%. Tried to play, of course, the ERS games to have a chance at least of P1, which was looking good up until the last straight. But unfortunately, I had a lot less ERS than the guys behind. So yeah, it was unfortunately P3 for today. Yeah, of course, looking back at it, it should have been a P1, but that's always looking back at it. You can always say stuff afterwards, and yeah, I'll take a P3 definitely, especially with the amount of prep I had. Yeah, I'll take it.
Well, it puts you into a situation now where, obviously because you got that podium, you have such a, a high point scoring in E-Series. You're still right in that fight, even though Tycho finished near the back. So obviously going into the next round, you're probably still, I think, 3rd or 4th in the standings, which is still, a brilliant job for the team. But obviously, I don't know if you'll be here next week. I don't know if you even know who'll be racing next week. But what's your thoughts on Imola as a track on a whole? Do you think it's good in esports? Do you think it'll produce some brilliant racing, or do you think a lot of it's all about qualifying and getting that best lap in at the qualifying stage?
It used to be a quali track. There's only one really long straight where you can overtake, which is in towards turn 1. Apart from that, I generally don't think there's any overtaking opportunity unless you're on like a ridiculous amount of fresh tires. Then you can possibly send it in the chicane as well, or into the penultimate corner. Apart from that, I don't think it's a very special track for racing. It is a very fun track and cool for quali especially.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about the race because of course this game there's always chaos. So I guess there will be some good content for the chaos, but I don't think there will be a lot of side by side battling. There will be some overtakes into turn one and the last corner, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
Of course. So, Thomas, thanks for joining us for an interview and have a good rest of your evening. And, of course, congratulations on the podium.
Cheers, Nathan, and cheers, Josh, as well. Thank you.
Pleasure, mate.
Bye.
Pleasure.
Right, Josh, we'll head over to the interview screen. Intermission screen. Intermission screen once again, and I've got to say that is going to be possibly the best race we've ever seen in E-Series. I think, at least in my opinion, it might be. I mean, we saw some brilliant races elsewhere in PSGL, but especially in E-Series, I think that takes the top spot because it was battling all throughout from lap 1 all the way to the end of lap 22. You never know who's going to take the lead. You never know who's going to be in the position to battle for the lead of the race, but also it makes the championship even more interesting because Race Clutch with a good lead, drop it a bit now. They might be down in 4th or 5th in the standings. And yet again, we see teams like obviously Aston Martin who were looking to be in a superb position to also not take the points they should have done. But Red Bull, I think, are easily going to take that top spot again, aren't they?
Yes, but again, it's all about those learnings and what you're able to take away from certain things. Ron Haar said there, it's a great example of hindsight. You look back and think, okay, if I pit a lap earlier than Jarno, I would have been in so much of a better position. It's something you could take moving forward into the likes of Imola and really try and excel and push yourself in that department. For me, it's going to be about seeing how a couple of these teams, the likes of Race Clutch, R8G, and especially now Aston as well, are able to bounce back and try and recultivate a little bit more of their motivation. We saw such promising things after that qualifying session from Aston, but in the race it wasn't quite there. Wrong strategy, didn't pay them any dividends for the true potential they had, because realistically there we could have seen both of the Astons in that battle as well on that final lap. But overall, for Spa-Francorchamps, it's always a banger. We always know it. E-Series is always a banger, and this race again delivered absolute miracles.
It certainly did. And I've got to say, of course, looking quickly at the calendar before we go, we, of course, head off to Imola next week. Arguably my favourite track on the calendar. I don't know why, but I just love this circuit. So I can't wait to get into the action in Italy. And then, of course, we head over to Silverstone, one of the staples of the Formula One calendar for round 8, Las Vegas. Now, oh, Josh, what a race that could be.
If we just saw that at Spa-Francorchamps, imagine what Las Vegas is going to be.
It's going to be an interesting one. That is going to be probably the race of the season, I think. But just given by the straights and the lack of dirty air on this game, then of course we end up in Bahrain yet again. One of those tracks. It's not special. It's it's not really that different, but it's always a brilliant track to have on a calendar, especially on the Formula One games. And that's of course where we end off the season. So we start in the Middle East and we end in the Middle East. But Josh, that will be it today. We've had a brilliant race. We can now relax, calm down, and get ready for Imola next week. Of course, we have the PS League on the PST is on Monday. Then, of course, PCF1 returns on Wednesday at Spa. So, of course, come back for that because we're going to have an even more stacked grid for that race around this superb circuit. Then, of course, the PCT is back on Thursday, and then we'll be back here for Imola on Friday. So, guys, have a good evening. Thanks again for joining us for the action of E-Series, and we'll see you again next week to see who can win. And we'll see, will it be another Red Bull 1-2, or will someone else take that top spot? So, for now, have a good one, guys, and we'll see you then. Good night.